So I really want to urge all of our leaders who are here, religious leaders and political leaders, that we must not allow the rhetoric of division to supersede the rhetoric of unity. We must also speak up. We must speak in ways that unite our country. If we allow these negative statements to continue, then they will define our country.
President Muhammadu Buhari is thankful to Allah that his mission and vision for Nigeria, as well as his genuine passion for the nation's greatness, is fully understood and appreciated by Nigerians. This, he said, was remarkably demonstrated in the way and manner they re-elected him for a second term of office. President Buhari therefore promised to do whatever it takes within the limits of the law towards decisively addressing genuine public concerns for peace, unity, stability, corrupt-free, and prosperous Nigeria.
Thank you very much, those of you who suffered quietly supporting me, and I assure you that I will continue to do my best.
Giant commemorative cards were presented to the Nigerian leader by the FCT residents and the Christian community in the State House, as all those present received a presidential handshake. From the State House, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
In the meantime, President Muhammadu Buhari has expressed confidence in the genuine commitment of Nigerian women towards safeguarding the nation's democracy all along, promising to accommodate more women in the current political dispensation. This came to light when a cross-section of Nigerian women paid a solemn homage on the president at the presidential villa, Abuja. State House correspondent Aliu Kabir reports.
In the spirit of Eid al-Fitr celebration, the representatives of the Nigerian women have converged on presidential villa to pay Salah homage to President Muhammadu Buhari, expressing their gratitude to God for witnessing the end of Ramadan fast with optimism of making the best use of the lessons learned during the period. While praying for the successful tenure of the present administration, the women promised to remain steadfast in adding value to the government business towards the development of the country.
I'm taking the lead to say that, and to speak on behalf of Nigerian women, that we know you have us at the back of your heart. And you know we have women that are capable, women that have the potentials, and women that will also add value to your administration.
We're here to thank God for your good health and to continuously pray that God will continue to increase good health to you day and night. We're here again to acknowledge and to reassure you that Nigerian women love you. We've made a promise, we'll fulfill our promise. We are waiting for you to fulfill your own part, Mr. President.
And we are still standing with you prayerfully so that God Almighty will lead the way and you will succeed in these 4 years with sound health, with long life, and every idea that will take Nigeria to the next level.
Women this time around. The few women you have included in your cabinet have proven to be worthy. So we want to assure you that if you do that this time, you're going to leave a legacy, sir.
And I'm here speaking on behalf of the civil servants to assure you, Your Excellency, that this time as we move to the next level with you, we will definitely make you very proud.
Baraka Jesala, thank you, sir. Thank you for what God is using you to restore our economy once again.
You've seen your vision, what you want to do for Nigeria, and that is why the women resolved that this time in 9th Assembly, since I'm a 4th-term member of House of Representatives, that we want to be speaker, we want to speak on your behalf.
President Buhari assured them of more recognition in the appointment this time, taking into consideration the role women played in the last dispensation, citing an example with the former Minister of Finance and the head of service of the Federation.
I think the biggest trust any leadership will show, whether it's a household, a town, or a country, is to give the treasury to the women. Since I came, women are in charge of the treasury. So I don't think it's not the number of workers employed, but the fundamentals of who holds the bag, who holds the cash. look at the treasury and look at the civil service. And hand it over them to women, and you are still asking for more. Okay, the history of Oliver Twist. Okay, we'll watch the numbers when we come next. Thank you very much.
The president urged them to sustain the tempo in their commitment of maintaining a healthy and positive family life, which he said is an engine towards a prosperous nation. From the State House, Aliu Kabir, NTA News.
And from the Eid celebration in Abuja to other parts of the country as Eid prayers took place in Maiduguri in a peaceful atmosphere. Let's join our correspondent Mohammed Goni for details on the celebration there.
The 2 units of prayer was led by the Imam Ideni of Borno, Shetima Mumun Shetima Saleh. In his sermon, the Imam Ideni urged Muslim faithful to reflect on the lessons of the holy month of Ramadan, which include fear of Allah, devotion, love, and support for the needy and the less privileged members of the society. The Imam, who also stressed the importance of Zakat al-Fitr, also enjoined Muslims to fast 6 days in the month of Shawwal, citing prophetic tradition that whoever fasts the month of Ramadan and follow it up with 6 days in Shawwal, it is as though he has fasted the whole year. Meanwhile, Governor Babagana Umar Zulum has felicitated with the people of Borno for successfully completing the month-long fast and charged them to be prayerful at all times for peace to return to the northeast and the country as a whole. The governor stressed commitment to ensuring citizens of Borno get access to their farmlands to ensure food sufficiency and the empowerment of the teeming youth in the state. A mini Daba also featured at the palace of the Shehu of Borno to commemorate the Salah festivity. Soon after witnessing the Daba, Governor Babagana Umar visited Bakassi and the Teachers Village IDP camps, where he donated rice and cows to the IDPs and appealed to them to be patient as government is doing everything possible to reconstruct their communities to enable them return to normal lives. In Maiduguri, Mohammed Goni, NTA News.
And as Muslims celebrate Eid al-Fitr, political leaders in Nigeria have been reminded of the thugs ahead of them and the expectations of the electorates. Sultan Saad Abubakar gave the reminder in his solemn message to Nigerians. Mohammed Nasir tells us more.
The Chief Imam of Sultan Bello Jumu'at Mosque Imam Malami led the Eid prayer, which was attended by Sultan Saad Abubakar, Sokoto State Governor Amin Waziri Tambuwal, and thousands of Muslim faithfuls. Addressing the congregation, the Imam charged Muslims to be just and fair in whatever they do. He urged Muslims to maintain the lessons learned during Ramadan. Sultan Saad Abubakar, while extending Salah message to Nigerians, was emphatic on the need for leaders to take proactive measures to protect the lives and property of Nigerians. He frowned at the manner people are being killed innocently, saying no religion encourages crime. The Sultan identified massive unemployment among youth as another factor that brings about criminal acts, calling for employment opportunities for Nigerians. In Sokoto, Muhammad Nasir, NTA News.
And in this next report, Mayor Ogidi compiled the mood of the Eid celebrations in some states.
Almost a month of self-denial for spiritual exercise. Here comes that moment of renewed vitality for the Muslim faithful. Those in the ancient city of Kano, in a celebrative mood, gathered at the Kano Central Eid ground with Emir Sanusi II leading others. And for the governor of Kano State, Abdullahi Ganduje, this is wish for Nigeria.
And we urge all Nigerians to tolerate one another.
Dressed to match the mood of the day, Muslims in Oshogbo, Osun State, observed the 2 Rakat prayers. Chief Imam Oshogbo, Musa Alu-Musao, admonished politicians not to use religion for divisive purposes. For the governor, Boyega Oyetola, Osun State has many reasons to be happy.
We thank God we have peace in Osun. We pray that we continue to have peace.
In Lafia, Nasarawa State, Muslims filed out in unexpected cheerful looks to the Gudi Eid ground. First on the Eid ground on his capacity as the governor of Nasarawa State, Abdullahi Sule maintained that the reasons for the exercise will not go with the passage of the fast.
The sacrifices that we have made during the month of Ramadan will continue.
Movement was restricted in Damaturu, Yobe State capital, for security reasons. But this did not deter the Muslim faithful in fulfilling their religious obligations. At the entrances to the Eid grounds, security checks were conducted, and Rakat prayers were reportedly peaceful across the state. For the governor of the state, who attended the prayer, Yobe State is heading for greatness.
I wish to stress that we will not relent in taking necessary steps towards consolidating the achievements recorded in the state so far.
Chief Imam Bauchi State, Bala Baba, admonished the congregation to avoid activities that will promote insecurity. And the governor of the state, Bala Mohammed, already working out plans to sustain the peace in the peril of tourism.
And that we'll be coming up with other social safety nets that will recognize extremely poor families so that they can put food on the table.
In Mina, Niger State, the governor, Abubakar Sani Bello, and the issue of Nupe, shortly after the Eid prayers at Bida, Niger State, reminded their subjects to be watchful of suspicious elements in their domains as security is paramount.
Told them to watch out for visitors, especially those ones that have bad intentions.
We urge our people to have that fear of Almighty Allah in them and to observe the lessons learned during this Ramadan period.
And in Rivers State, peaceful coexistence and ceaseless prayers for Nigeria was the focus of the Muslim faithful as they gather for their 2 Rakat prayers.
Better thing inside this Ramadan. We pray for our country, we pray for this, our state.
Mie Ogidi, NTA News.
And Francis Form also guides us through the Eid prayers in some other parts of the country.
Awal Abdullahi reports that the Eid prayers were conducted in various Eid grounds in Jalingo under a peaceful atmosphere. In Uyo, Muslims were enjoined to extend acts of charity and good neighborliness to the needy, irrespective of religion and political affiliation.
I remind them, responsibility of every Muslim that fasted, you have to give out Zakatul Fitr.
We don't have to curse our leaders. We have to pray for them.
In Lokoja, Ayedeyin Solomon reports that Muslims were being advised to imbibe the lessons of Ramadan. While in Benin, Muslims were admonished to observe the 5 pillars of Islam, even as the Ramadan is over.
Those good deeds that we were practicalized during the month of Ramadan, let us continue to abide by them. Let us practicalize them.
The lesson to be learned basically is for us to continue to live the life of holiness.
In Abuja, Francis Form, NTA News.
More stories on Eid al-Fitr when we return. Do stay with us.
The public is hereby invited to the unveiling ceremony of a historical exhibition in pictures, arts and immersive environment as part of activities lined up to mark the 2019 Democracy Day commemoration. The exhibition with the theme Unbroken Democracy is scheduled to take place as follows. Date 7th June 2019. Venue International Conference Center, ICC. Time 4:30 p.m. Please note, the exhibition will remain open to the public until June 12, 2019. Boss Mustafa, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, announcer.
It's Ramadan. It's okay to share what you love. Ramadan Kareem from Indomie. Indomie Super Pack now available at 85 Naira.
What we are really cultivating here is a better future for all Nigerian women. And it's not always easy. Panadol Extra relieves headache, backache, joint pain, toothache, and menstrual pain. The pain is worth it.
Mr. Shehu, are you okay?
I'm having pain, so this has been like this for the past 1 week.
Let me assist you to the hospital. You can't continue like this alone.
no. I want to go and see Baba Muslim to give me some herbal mixture so that I can take. Because this hospital, the way they treat person, I'm not going to the hospital.
Mr. Shebu, that was in the past. With new patients' Bill of Rights, patients have the right to an urgent, immediate, and sufficient intervention and care. A right to complain and experience dissatisfaction where and when necessary. With the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, FCCPC, your consumers' rights are protected.
To lay your complaint, please contact any of the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission's FCCPC offices closest to you with your complaints. You can also call our helplines at 0805 600 2020 or 0805 600 3030.
Please, let us go to the hospital. I'd like to experience this firsthand.
At FCCPC, you can rely on us to resolve your complaints effectively and efficiently.
As part of activities to commemorate the 2019 Girls in ICT Day celebration, the Ministry of Communication is calling for participation on her national ICT competition with the theme Girls Innovate, Invent and Create. It is open to girls in secondary schools nationwide. A team of a maximum of 3 girls each in any secondary school in Nigeria to come up with solutions to pressing challenges in their communities addressing SDGs 1 to 8. Girls should be between 13 to 18 years. Entries should give detailed description of a 10-page proposal in Microsoft Word. Project idea on what the team can do using ICT in addressing the challenges should be stated with the names and teams and SDGs being addressed, which will be accompanied with a PowerPoint presentation. Entries duly labeled with name of student and school endorsed by the principal are to be submitted online at www.digitalgirls.org.ng. Successful schools would receive special awards and prizes. Entries will be received from Friday 17th May to Monday 10th June 2019 and winners will be announced on 14th June 2019. Contact the following for more information. M.F. Estefanus, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Communication, Announcer.
One Football Confederation, 24 teams, 6 stadiums, 4 cities, 504 African stars, 1 trophy. The Africa Cup of Nations Egypt 2019 comes alive from June 21 with the showpiece final on July 19, 2019. Watch the 52 matches of the tournament live on Africa's biggest and largest television network, NTA, in partnership with Hotsports. Be part of the biggest soccer fiesta in the African continent as the Super Eagles go on a bold mission to clinch the prestigious title for the 4th time to the excitement of millions of fans across the length and breadth of Nigeria. Nigeria's premier sports production and marketing group, Hotsports, partners with the biggest, the largest, and the #1 television network in Africa, the NTA, to give Nigerians a memorable viewing experience. Boost fan support for the Super Eagles to glory in Egypt. For inquiries, please contact Abubakar on 0803-331-0175 and Felix on 0803-308-2375. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
This is NTA Network News. Nigerians have been employed to use the occasion of the Eid al-Fitr to preach to one another on the need for a peaceful and secure society for all. Correspondent Timothy Yusuf spoke with some clergy while monitoring the security situation within Abuja metropolis.
Imam Umar Rufai of the Water and Sewage Mosque Life Camp is among many faithful that observed the Eid prayer in Abuja. He believes that the fight against insecurity is being won to a larger extent by concerned authorities, but however cautioned that the fight should be a responsibility of all Nigerians.
It's very important that we should look at our country very well because we have no other country to live except here. Surely at this sunlight period, it's a period whereby the Muslims and wherever they are, they come together. Therefore, we are calling on each and every one of us to know that the lives of Nigerians are very expensive.
As the message for the need for Nigerians to remain peaceful dominated the sermon at various Eid praying grounds, so were the security agencies on ground for a Eid-free prayer. Their combined efforts were both visible on land and in the air.
Even we, the masses, we should do something too. If you hear anything that can endanger your people living in the community, then why don't you allow the police so that they can be able to curb all this on time?
Imam Rufai and many believe that Nigeria can surmount her security challenges with prayers, in addition to government's effort. In Abuja, Timothy Yusuf, NT News.
And now still talking about the Eid al-Fitr, Momso Damien Datti celebrated the day with a family in Abuja as a unit of the larger society. And her experience is a story of love and harmonious coexistence. It's worth sharing.
It's a joyous and exceptionally happy day for the Shaibos family. The father, Abdul Mumini, the mother, Fatimotu, and 8 children woke up in a celebrative mood. After all, they have successfully completed the 29-day obligatory Ramadan fast, in which even the youngest children of 5 and 8 participated.
How many days?
25.
5. Did you enjoy it?
No.
But you are learning?
Yes.
Completed the fasting and everything went okay. So I'm just so happy today.
It's 28 days. It was so awesome.
And now, everyone runs around to prepare for the prayer. And off to the mosque they go to join other Muslim faithful in the Eid prayer. They return home after prayers, where everyone assists in preparation of the Salah meal. And then spend quality time with each other, even as they pray for the well-being of Nigeria.
So Alhamdulillah for seeing the fasting as usual. Some of us have started but have not seen the ending, but we'll give thanks and praise to Almighty Allah. I encourage people that look, stay with their children, give them time, show them love, let them feel united, let them feel look we're together, whatever conversation we're together. These are issues, particularly with other things that's happening in the society now. If you don't bring your children closer to you, you know what's going on.
Happy Salah to Nigeria. I just want to celebrate my Salah with my family.
May Allah bring peace and harmony to Nigeria.
Then time to enjoy the sumptuous meal together as a family.
I've been invited to share the Salah meal with the Shaibos. I don't know about you, but for me, love, brotherliness, sharing, caring, and what a true family should be like is the strong message the Shaibos are passing across to Nigerians today on this Salah. Momso Damien Datti, NTA News.
Thank you, Momso. Still in the spirit of the season, wife of the President Aisha Muhammadu Buhari has called on Muslim Ummah to use lessons of Ramadan of perseverance, discipline, obedience, and the fear of Allah to reflect in their daily activities for peace, tolerance, and the unity of the country. Mrs. Buhari stated this in a message through the Special Assistant to the President on Administration, Malam Hadi Uba, during the distribution of food items and other essential commodities to the Muslim communities at various mosques in Kano. State House correspondent Aliu Kabiru reports that the gesture is part of the humanitarian activities of Mrs. Buhari in assisting the needy and other less privileged in the society to cushion the effect of their hardship. The distribution of the rice is an annual event embarked by the Aisha Muhammadu Buhari Foundation during the months of Ramadan to enable the Muslim Ummah perform the Ramadan fast and Salah celebration with ease. Meanwhile, the All Progressive Congress APC rejoices with all Muslim faithful for the successful completion of fasting. The party, in a statement by its National Publicity Secretary, Larry Issa Onilu, employs Muslim Ummah to continue to imbibe the spirit of Ramadan, which includes sacrifice, modesty, and discipline in rededicating themselves to the task of nation building. The statement also admonishes Muslims and non-Muslims to cultivate the virtues of tolerance in their relationship with fellow Nigerians and shun all divisive acts capable of destabilizing the country. And the Nigerian Labour Congress has also congratulated Muslims on the occasion of Eid al-Fitr celebration. The president of the union, Ayuba Waba, in a statement urged Muslims and non-Muslims to imbibe the spirit of Ramadan fast, which teaches discipline, forgiveness, good neighborliness, self-control, and service to God and humanity. NLC also calls on the government to rededicate itself in its service to the nation, especially on the issues of security, economy, justice, and confidence building. Away from Eid al-Fitr now, Nigeria's Professor Tijani Mohammed Bande is now the 74th President of the United Nations General Assembly. He is the second Nigeria to be elected as the President of the General Assembly 30 years after Major General Joe Garba. And joining us to talk more on Professor Tijani Mohammed Bande is Joy, our correspondent. It's our correspondent, Joy Osiagu. Hello, Joy. How was New York today? Hello, Professor Bande. How was New York today? And congratulations for Nigeria and Africa. How did the election go?
The elections went well, and we thank God that we were elected by acclamation early in the day.
And what are your priorities right now as you assume office as the 74th President of the United Nations?
We have been very clear from the very beginning that peace and security is the #1 priority of the presidency. We also have placed climate action as critical, in addition to the implementation of 3 key SDG goals, namely zero eradication of poverty, zero hunger, and quality education. Now, these are also to be understood in the context of inclusion of youth and women and the respect for rights. These are elements that we have made very clear as important, and these are also issues that the African group has worked with others to make priorities of. So these are the priorities of the presidency going forward.
Okay. Now, how do you intend to handle the facts ahead, especially meeting the targets of the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030?
What we need to do is to work with others to have negotiations to get further commitment of leaders at the highest level, but also to think through how we can work with others to creatively address the issues through negotiation, through partnership, through sharing of information, through sharing of ideas. These are elements that are necessary in this platform. And Nigeria has worked throughout the years with others to do this. The African group is also supportive. The entire UN membership is agreed that we should not be complacent, that it to be. And I am certain with the support of the membership will make an impact in the areas we have mentioned.
Okay, thank you so much, and we congratulate you on your election as the 74th President of the United Nations. Let's now join Dotu in our Lagos Network Center for the latest from that zone. Hello, Dotu. Compliments of the season.
Same to you, Jumai, and welcome to the Center of Excellence. The Chief Imam of Lagos has emphasized the need for forgiveness and religious harmony. Sheikh Suleiman Abdul Nula led the 2-rakat prayer at the Dodan Barracks Eid prayer ground. Abalade Salami reports.
Muslim faithful defied the early morning rains to converge on Dodan Barracks Eid prayer ground to observe the 2 mandatory rakat prayers. Chief Imam of Lagos, Sheikh Sulaiman Abu Nola, reminded the faithful to live a life of piety and continue in their acts of benevolence. The tenet of Islam emphasized must at all times be obeyed in consonance with the teachings of the Holy Quran.
We invite everyone to establish peace, justice, righteousness, and security in the land. This is for you so that you can become successful. The messenger of Allah said, all mankind, spread peace, feed people, observe prayers at night when people are asleep. We know this will grant you to paradise.
The The Deputy Governor of Lagos State, Obafemi Hamzat, charged Lagosians to be selfless and remain patriotic.
It's for us to be godly in what we do. Think about other Lagosians. So when you're on the road, think about other road users. When you are in your house, think about others that don't even have a house. So it's about empathy for every Lagosian so that we live a life that is not destructive.
It should be regularly preached in all the mosques that we are for peace and we are peace-loving people of this nation.
The Eid prayers mark the end of the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. In Lagos, Abolade Salami, NTA News.
To an average Lagosian, public holiday is a time to rest and visit some loved ones. Annie Daniels, who went round town to monitor the traffic situation, reports that Lagos residents are really taking advantage of the break as the roads are free from gridlock.
Driving around Lagos on public holidays is always a delight to motorists and other road users. This is because the roads are devoid of the usual gridlock the city is known for. Even the Apapa Road is not left out, as the road is relatively free. Motorists drove in and out of the area with ease, unlike what it was before the public holiday.
We like it at Ibi now, not like before where everywhere blocked.
And the major part of it is if you don't have your loading permit, you should go to the park and park. So we are happy.
The story is, however, different at the Ijora Cross, where NTA News came across a traffic build-up. On inquiry, we were informed that a container conveying truck skidded off the road at about 2 o'clock in the morning. Residents here are angry that up till now, nothing has been done to take it off the road.
We don't save many persons. Some Okada people will pass like this. Motor, small car, they pass like this. But nobody can die.
They don't call several people to come and carry it for them. Since that yesterday night, they will say they will come.
To forestall another case of trailer fall, these security personnel have been drafted to the area. While some motorists exercise caution, others, like these heavy-duty trucks, are taking the wrong routes. Thank goodness for these security personnel who, though declined speaking on camera, forcefully dissuaded the recalcitrant motorists from taking the wrong routes. In Lagos, Annie Daniels, NTA News.
This is NTA Network News. More reports after this commercial break. Please stay tuned.
We love dances that create wow performances. And for many stains on so many clothes, we need wow. Wow. Amazing washing power and lots of foam to remove the tough stains. Each wow pack gets a lot of clothes clean and fresh. A lot more than you think. Wow. Washes a lot, saves a lot.
The Nigerian national flag is a sacred national symbol. It is a mark of patriotism and a show of love for our nation to fly the national flag correctly, in the right colors, right dimension, and in the right sizes for each occasion. In recent times, it has been noticed that government offices, corporate organizations, banks, embassies, and other notable institutions fly faded, shredded, and haggard-looking versions of the national flag. This is wrong and must stop. It has also been noticed that some citizens prefer to popularize the national flag of other nations. Fellow countrymen and women, let us be patriotic. Come, let us show love for our motherland. Fly the correct versions of our national flag in all relevant places. Be patriotic. Be proud ambassadors of our great country.
This message is from the National Orientation Agency.
These days, people get their news and information from more media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous, whether you do it for fun or for political gains. Real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA.
You're watching NTA Network News, reaching you live from Abuja. Now time for business news as Nigeria steps up efforts to make investment in the equities market more viable. Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, Oscar Oyema, says the market remains resilient. Amina Nojim is here with details on business news. The equity market is resilient.
Yes, it is.
What's happening?
On business news today, latest reports from the World Bank says global economic growth is forecast to ease to a weaker 2.6% in 2019 before inching up to 2.7% in 2020. In its mid-year global economic prospects, the Global Apex Bank projects that growth in emerging markets and developing economies is projected to stabilize in 2020 as some countries move past periods of financial strain. Meanwhile, for sub-Saharan Africa, growth is anticipated to accelerate to 3.3% in 2020, assuming that investor sentiment towards some of the large economies of the region improves. The World Bank did indicate that per capita GDP is likely to rise in the region. It will nevertheless be insufficient to significantly reduce poverty. The financial markets are closed for business today, Tuesday and Wednesday for the Eid celebrations. Meanwhile, the Nigerian equities market maintained a bearish outing on Monday, having opened the week with a loss of 0.45%. The bears trend was on the back of losses witnessed in the highly capitalized equities. On how the Nigerian Stock Exchange has fared so far in the midst of battles between the bulls and the bears, the Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, Oscar Oyema, describes the market as resilient.
I have to say that the market has proven itself to be extremely resilient, given the kind of volatility that we've seen from 2015, the 2016 economic downturns, and recovery in 2017, and 2018 being like a midway year, if you will, as people got ready for elections. The market, in all, has handled it well.
And that is it on business news. Jumai, it's back to you.
Thank you so much, Amina. Still on business and economy, the Nigerian Television Authority has been partnering with various agencies, both private and public, with the sole purpose of providing accurate information, education and entertainment. With this in mind, the NTA played host to the CAO, Nigeria Stock Exchange, and the head of the Civil Service of the Federation. Let's now join Amina Nojim again for details.
The equities market of the Nigerian Stock Exchange has continued to attract the attention of investors as Nigeria steps up effort to make investment in the sector more viable. The NSE did anticipate volatility in the equities market in the first half of 2019, with enhanced stability post-elections, while expecting an uptick in market activity during the second half of the year. To create awareness, the NSE is proposing an engagement with the Nigerian Television Authority, which brought the Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, Oscar Oyema, to the NTA.
Millions of Nigerians to participate in the market and to be able to create an alternative way of creating durable wealth.
And one of our major mandates as the national television is to create awareness, is to let people know about the economic status of whatever we do.
Officials from the Office of the Head of the Civil Service of the Federation also came calling, and the intent is to foster ties ahead of the Civil Service Week. Executive Director Engineering of the NTA, Stephen Moses, assured the Permanent Secretary, Service Policies and Strategies, Dr. Magdalena Jani, that the organization will continue to showcase activities of the civil service of the Federation.
Anything civil service, we don't play with it, because when the workforce is not adequately motivated or adequately equipped with the skills and the technologies they need to operate, it will affect productivity. And you know, when productivity is affected, it will affect our performance.
Civil servants in Nigeria will be celebrated for the way they have helped to develop policies and implement them in the country, and also to say well done for a good job that they do daily.
In Abuja, Amina Nujaim, NTA News.
And Miriam is standing by in our Jos Network Center with reports from that zone. Hello, Miriam.
Jumai, Barka da Sallah. The Muslim Ummah State joined their counterparts across the globe to celebrate this year's Eid al-Fitr to mark the end of the holy month of Ramadan. The Chief Imam of Jos, Sheikh Lawal Adam, called on them to reflect the lessons of sacrifice, love, forgiveness, and self-denial, which were learnt during the month of Ramadan in their day-to-day lives. Abdul Wahab Babankanti was at the Ali Kazori prayer ground and completes the report.
More than denying oneself from food and drink, the fast of Ramadan is a complete body and soul fast, which enables Muslims to reflect on the main principles that govern their activities during the month of Ramadan and beyond. The Imam said the blessed month of Ramadan is existent solely to train Muslims and remind them of how to live in the remaining 11 months of the year.
To always abide by the rules and regulations of the nation, and also to abide by the teachings of Islam.
To glorify God for seeing us to the end of the fasting of Ramadan it brings unity among Muslims, Ummah, and by extension to even non-Muslims, because you gather people, you feed them, you interact and socialize together.
In what seems to be maximum effort at ensuring hitch-free celebration, Operation Safe Haven did not only deploy its personnel, but the commander was on ground himself to extend his felicitation to the Muslim community and to further build their confidence in terms of protecting the lives and property of the citizenry.
We energized our strategy. We have equally tried as much to appeal to the conscience of everybody.
The vigilante and the first aid group were also on ground to support security agencies in coordinating the Eid prayer. In Jos, Abdul Hababankanti, NTA News.
Still on Islamic matters, renowned Islamic scholars have emphasized that perfect conduct and good morals should govern the social and political life of Nigerians, irrespective of religious affiliations. This was the crux of discourse during the last tafsir preceding the Eid al-Fitr celebration in Jos. Abba Abubakar Yakubu has that.
The scholars who delivered their closing remarks admonished Muslims to understand the essence of the Holy Quran. They urged them to know that tafsir is meant to explain to mankind the book that has been revealed by Allah to impart knowledge to Muslims, which has great benefit. The scholars call on government to address unemployment, security challenges, and to review the education curriculum to strengthen morals and self-discipline.
Our brothers in Islam and all love brothers in Nigeria to uplift the standard of education and moral in our beloved country, Nigeria.
How will the peace that we have would be retained? How we are going to stay in peace?
The Ramadan period, in which Muslims believe the Holy Scripture was revealed, is marked by intensive recitation, study, and commentary of the glorious Quran. In Jos, Abba Abubakar Yakubu, NTA News.
That's a wrap from Jos. Jumai, it's back to you for what's left of the news.
Thank you, Miriam. And Chineye is in Enugu with more reports from that zone. Hello, Chineye.
Jumai, happy Salah and welcome to Enugu. It was a hitch-free and peaceful Salah celebration in Enugu as the leader of Hausa community, Alhaji Abubakar Sambo, enjoined Muslim faithful to reflect on the lessons of Ramadan in their daily activities. Comfort Ayim has the report.
Muslim faithful in Enugu converged on Eid Ground Islamic Center Uwani to join their counterparts the world over to mark Eid al-Fitr. The chief imam, Enugu Central Mosque, Owerri Road, Asata, led the 2 rakat prayer, the usual prayer for Eid al-Fitr, which signifies prayer for forgiveness and thanksgiving to Allah for His faithfulness upon their lives.
Now come here to give thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and show our happiness and be gratitude to Allah for making our days very peaceful and fasting.
On the significance of the event, the leader Hausa community Enugu State says Salah celebration is a time to show love and sacrifice to humanity in spite of religious affiliations, with a continuous prayer for the leaders in Nigeria.
Is marked as Eid al-Fitr after the lengthy days of fasting, 30 to 29 days. This year, inshallah, we got 29. So it's a Eid of reflection. It's a Eid that has a high moral, spiritual background.
Commissioner of Police Enugu State Command Suleiman Balarabe also joined his fellow Muslims in prayers with a message of hope. Meanwhile, security operatives were on red alert to ensure security of lives and property, especially at this period. In Enugu, Comfort Ayim, NTA News.
The administration of Governor Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi has been commended for the high level of peace and security it achieved in the first tenure. The Catholic Bishop of Nsukka Diocese, Most Reverend Godfrey Ona, gave the commendation at a post-inauguration Thanksgiving service held at Holy Ghost Cathedral, Enugu. Susan Eze reports.
Besides the landmark achievements in infrastructural development by the Ugwuanyi administration, Bishop Ona also pointed out that feasible programs of the administration and prudent management of resources all combined to make the state more viable. The bishop advised the governor to brace up to the new challenges that may come with the fresh mandate as he consolidates on the achievements of the first tenure. He stressed the need for the administration to lay emphasis on education at all levels to restore sanity in the system. Governor Ugwuanyi and the Deputy Cecilia Ezilo were accompanied to the Thanksgiving by top functionaries in the state. In Enugu, Susan Eze, NTA News.
And that is it from Enugu. Network News continues after this commercial break. Stay with us.
Consolidating on good governance agenda for the next level is the thrust this week on NTA Tuesday Live. The program every Tuesday at 10:30 p.m. promises to be informative, incisive, and educative. Don't miss it.
You can follow us on all our social media platforms: Facebook at NTA Network News, Instagram at NTA Network, Twitter at NTA News Now, YouTube at NTA News Online. All visit www.nta.ng. For live streaming, visit www.nta.ng/live. Now, you can stay updated on the go, be it on your TV, iPhone, laptop, or iPad, or download the NTA mobile application from your Play Store or App Store. NTA, you can beat the rich.
One Football Confederation, 24 teams, 6 stadiums, 4 cities, 504 African stars, 1 trophy. The Africa Cup of Nations Egypt 2019 comes alive from June 21 with the showpiece final on July 19, 2019. Watch the 52 matches of the tournament live on Africa's biggest and largest television network, NTA, in partnership with Hot Sports. Be part of the biggest soccer fiesta in the African continent as the Super Eagles go on a bold mission to clinch the prestigious title for the 4th time, to the excitement of millions of fans across the length and breadth of Nigeria. For inquiries, please contact Abubakar on 0803-331-0175 and Felix on 0803-308-2375. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
Next is Sports Update.
Football fans.
His first term was on the change matter, and his second term, somewhere along the campaigns, we heard a lot about next level, and truly we came in contact with next level. But in his first term, he used the change matter to deliver on 3 core areas besides other areas he achieved in the country, which was tackling security, fight against corruption, and revival of the economy. Indeed, the nation was in a recession, but through reflecting policies, the nation was taken out of recession. Tonight, we shall be looking at good governance, the next level agenda, as the government takes off almost immediately. But this will happen after this backgrounder, for those who should know, put together by Saliu Abdullahi.
We all need to move to the next level.
Next level is indeed one that calls for collective discharge of responsibilities and patriotism in line with the vision of the current administration. Next level without any political undertone means the level ahead or moving on. The word next level, however, became popular when President Muhammadu Buhari, at his inaugural speech to herald the 2019 presidential campaign, adopted it as a slogan to seek re-election. This is with a vision to sustain the successes achieved in his first tenure and build on the foundation laid for a strong, stable, and prosperous country for the majority of the people. Analysts believe that majority of Nigerians are not only familiar with the campaign promises of the APC in 2015, but they have come to appreciate the impact those promises in the areas of security, anti-corruption, and economy have made in their life.
And a lot of activities in terms of transportation. You can see the railway. By the next 4 years, we believe that railway will be all over the Federation.
Well, this is somebody who has traveled. This is the second time democratically, and you can say the third time being a military head of state. He knows where he has been to, and I'm sure what he has seen in the past. And this last 4 years, I'm sure he would have learned a lot of lessons and avoid any pitfalls.
We can see that the impact of Mr. President Buhari is giving us Nigeria a hope.
All these and more made Nigerians to re-elect President Muhammadu Buhari and Vice President Yemi Oshibanjo for another term to enable them realize their dream of taking Nigeria and Nigerians to the next level. Nigerians are hopeful as President Muhammadu Buhari formally took another oath of office for a fresh mandate of that 4 years.
The next level is taking Nigeria to the next level of progress, taking Nigeria to the next level of doing things right, taking Nigeria to the next level of a country where we will be providing employment, where we'll be taking more Nigerians out of poverty.
And we can't succeed as a nation except we come together and truly unite with common hopes, common dreams, and common aspirations.
The government at various forums has promised to make the next 4 years quite significant for socio-political development of Nigeria. In Abuja, Salihu Abdullahi, NTA News.
That backgrounder by Saliu Abdullahi puts us through for today's discussion on Tuesday Live, and it is looking at good governance, the next level agenda. Well, as usual, at some point in the program, we shall be taking calls, and if we join you, go straight to the point and make your issue, and we'll move on with the program. Tonight, I have with me Dr. Gloria Laraba Shoda. Dr. Gloria Laraba Shoda is the National President, National Council for Women's Societies, and also Coordinator, International Council for Women on Social Issues. Thanks for being on Tuesday Live.
Thank you.
Also, Festus Keyamo, SAN, Strategic Communications of the APC presidential campaign, and I believe you have so many other designations. Thanks for being on Tuesday Live.
Thank you for inviting me.
Also, Daniel Bwala, member Lincoln's in London, legal practitioner and public affairs commentator. It's a pleasure having you on Tuesday Live.
Thank you, my pleasure as always.
And if Katsina is ready, we'll be joined from Katsina via Skype by Dr. Mustafa Muhammad. But as soon as he's ready, we'll join him. But let's move on with the program. Well, the focus of the program is consolidating good governance, the next level agenda. A lot of conversations have been sustained regarding the next level agenda. Let me take off with Keyamo before I spread. I know we took off with the lady, but let me take off with you on this. A lot of interpretations have been given to this next level agenda. Somewhere I said it is a metamorphosis from change matter to next level agenda. What do you make of it?
Well, first of all, happy Eid al-Fitr to our Muslim brothers. You forgot to, to felicitate with them.
Sure.
Now, luckily for us, before the campaigns proper took off, my office as the Director of Strategic Communications sat down with the Vice President and some staff of the Presidency, and we actually worked on the next level document. So I was to be at the heart of the it's nothing more than that. Divide, smoking. So that is moving it up to the next level. On that,
some police that we should be happy, and we hope
approved and policy proved upon. The world, my suggestion would be successfully for Nigeria. But we need to trust people. You remember recently the FBI, when there was a threat in America that the government was going to be shut down, the FBI had to cry out that if that should happen, they are going to have a great deal of setback. Why? Because they use monies in promoting human intelligence. You remember the president recently also said that the community are the people that bring information that is relevant for good governance. That is human intelligence. The advanced technology is the use of drones. If you look at Kaduna and Abuja, you look at the challenges there. If we deploy technology in the area of the use of drones, we're going to have a marked success. If you look at Zamfara, you look at Kogi, if you look at different parts of the country. So going to the next level, I believe the government will invest more, and I think the president has talked about that in the past, on advanced technology and on human intelligence, so that the intelligence agencies, when they are able to gather this intelligence and process it, the policymakers will be able to act effectively. Of course, in the area of the economy, I don't want to say much because the learned has said extensively on that.
Okay. Well, I hear our signals from Katsina is up, and Dr. Mustafa Mohammed Inwa is up. Doctor, thanks once again for joining us on Tuesday Live.
Hello? I beg your pardon, I can't hear you.
But my first question to you, if you can hear me, is what is your own view about the next level agenda for the next 4 years in Nigeria?
Can't hear you. Okay.
Audio challenge that will be fixed. As soon as we fix that, we'll get to Katsina. Well, let's go to specifics now. We have given a general perspective to this next level agenda tied to consolidating good governance. Would we say it was one of the takeoffs for the next level when the directive came from.
Or you get all these regulatory agencies in respect of businesses, and they'll be housed in one building.
Because they are the ones that are there. Whenever you go anywhere, go to any marketplace, you discover the percentage of women to men. So I believe that...
Or we lost that call. The question I was to throw to you was
yes.
on a wider perspective.
Yes.
Now, moving on, the judiciary, the legislature, the executive, they are independent,
absolutely,
yet interdependent.
I read on the pages of the papers and through the media, people are saying they don't want autonomy, not the government.
This is the network service of the NTA.
It's Dami Records, baby.
Always watching, always sighting, always moving, always wanting, always popping, always sashing. Are you paying for? Are you paying for? Oh, yeah, move. Walk the feet off, walk away. Malo for, oh, yeah, I know you can come off the coin. Oh, Shama, when we come on the Ficodi. Malo, buy me factory, oh, yeah, Jorum, anything to my friend in my friend. Baby, you're my support, but it's rare. Because I'm ready, to your press. Everyone told about me like a man, rare. I be care, I'm a friend. Oh, Shama, man's no hot. Man's no hot. 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 Joe Abai. I'm a Joe Abai. Oh, she bye. Only me now. Joe Abai.
File, man, there's Joe Abai. Loaded to far by. Jebadi lo fetoy. I'm a back and more by. File, oh yeah, Kawasoke be hallelujah. Run your body, be paper suya. What's on the Kabaleke like Seke? How much I go pay? Man, for me love it. Are you ready, fam? Jen Wale Silek fam. Oh my bonus, so where the fam? Sanitation for not clear the fam. Whoosh, get down, get. Man, the man, that me please, I see the queue, yeah.
Joe Abai. I'm a Joe Abai. Oh, she bye. Only me now. Joe Abai. Killing the beat, maestro. All my London girls don't start to dengue pose. If you head the bed, you make you better, Joe. Maestro, lele, Dijo, lele. If you want to get the bounce, get it down, hey. Oh, Bella, Dijo, lera. I get one in London, I want back and better. We good the thing, I see roots the wekele. Darami wekele, 360 wekele. Hey, my show, Joe Shakira, we deal over to you. Shout out to Badosne, Pepe Sne. Shout out to Badosne, they don't know. Only Banji Josh, they don't know. Only Banji Josh, must know. You know, say must know. Must know. You know, say must know. Niga, Nicolo, Nicolo, Gaspo, Nicolo, Nicolo, she get. Bon be moi, she get. Le one, your girl, your lebe, leave am, feel be. Don't touch am, feel be. That's my babe. Don't touch am, that's my babe. Joe Abai. I'm a Joe Abai. Oh, she bye. Only me now. Joe Abai. Mix and laser.
Procedure. On the whole, although the process of decongesting the nation's prisons remains a continuous process, there cannot be any doubt that a solid foundation has been laid through the activities of the Presidential Committee to help reform our criminal justice system by rejigging the nation's correctional institutions.
for any booklet, please?
Madam, we know they sell book for here. See, our food, see our food.
Like you don't have a menu? So how am I supposed to know what to order for or what to eat?
Who the heck recommended this rattle of a booker for you?
Who can you? What do you want? Oh my God! Who is that now?
Eid al-Fitr, we continue our assessment of 20 years of
Nigeria's selection as the president of the 74th General Assembly of the United Nations. Let's begin experience in Nigeria.
And it representative to the United Nations.
Similarly, the president has expressed confidence in the genuine commitment of Nigerian women towards safeguarding the nation's democracy, promising to accommodate more women in the current political dispensation. This came to light when a cross-section of Nigerian women paid Salah homage to the president at the presidential villa, Abuja.
I think the biggest trust any leadership will show as a household, a town or a country is to give the treasury to the women. Since I came, women are in charge of the treasury. So I don't think, it's not the number of workers employed, but the fundamentals of who holds the bag.
There were also prayers across the country as Muslims celebrated the Eid al-Fitr.
Remind them, responsibility of every Muslim that fasted, you have to give out Zakatul Fitr.
We don't have to curse our leaders. We have to pray for them.
Nigeria's Professor Tijani Muhammad Bande has been named the 74th President of the United Nations Assembly. The announcement was made at the UN Assembly Hall in New York.
Implementation of existing mandates and the 2030 Agenda, with particular focus on peace and security, poverty eradication, zero hunger, quality education, climate action and inclusion will constitute the major priority of my presidency. As the United Nations has not met the expectations of its founding fathers in terms of preventing many violent conflicts and mass atrocities, we have to assume collective responsibility to make the world a better, safer, and more peaceful one.
And on security, the Zamfara state government has appealed for the deployment of more troops to identified black spots in the state. The state governor, Bello Mohammed Mutawali, made the appeal when he received the representative of the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai, on operational visit.
We have a major problem in between Bori to Faru up to Talata Mafara. It's a brand new road that is unaccessible road for now because bandit has already taken over that areas.
That's the news for now. Good morning. Nigeria continues with Claire and Kinsley after this break. Thank you for watching.
One Football Confederation, 24 teams, 6 stadiums, 4 cities, 504 African stars, 1 trophy. The Africa Cup of Nations Egypt 2019 comes alive from June 21 with the showpiece final on July 19, 2019. Watch the 52 matches of the tournament live on Africa's biggest and largest television network, NTA, in partnership with Hot Sports. Be part of the biggest soccer fiesta in the African continent as the Super Eagles go on a bold mission to clinch the prestigious title for the 4th time, to the excitement of millions of fans across the length and breadth of Nigeria. Nigeria's premier sports production and marketing group, Hot Sports, partners with the biggest, the largest, and the #1 television network in Africa, the NTA, to give Nigerians a memorable viewing experience. Boost fan support for the Super Eagles to glory in Egypt. For inquiries, please contact Abubakar on 0803-331-0175 and Felix on 0803-308-2375. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
It's Ramadan. It's okay to share what you love. Ramadan Kareem from Indomie. Indomie Super Pack now available at 85 Naira.
The general public is hereby invited to the unveiling ceremony of a historical exhibition in pictures, arts and immersive environment as part of activities lined up to mark the 2019 Democracy Day commemoration. The exhibition with the theme Unbroken Democracy is scheduled to take place as follows. Date 7th June 2019. Venue International Conference Center, ICC. Time 4:30 p.m. Please note, the exhibition will remain open to the public until June 12, 2019. Boss Mustafa, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, announcer.
The Aerial Assurance Challenge.
Oh, thank you. But what assurance can you give our daughter?
Everything. With the new look Aerial, I can even do the laundry.
Prove it then.
Okay. Let's make this stain even tougher. Now, let's wash the cloth with your detergent and with new look Aerial. Do you believe me now? Aerial, now in a new look pack.
Television studio lighting requires skills which can only be acquired through professional training. NTA TV College JOS therefore invites engineers and technical officers in public and private television stations to a special 4-week course on television studio lighting. Date 10th June to 5th July 2019. Course fee 100,000 Naira only per participant. Accommodation fees inclusive. Venue NTA TV College Rayfield JOS. The course will expose participants to modern techniques and technologies of television studio lighting, operation of studio lighting equipment, and the profound effect of lighting on television broadcast. For more enquiries, please call 0803-314-4383 or 0806-980-9807. NTA TV College, training you to be the best you want to be.
All right, now it's time for us to take some business news with the latest report from the World Bank indicating that global economic growth is forecast to ease to a weaker 2.6% in 2019 before inching up to 2.7% in year 2020. This and more on Business News with our correspondent, Chimaobi Walter Nanji.
In its mid-year global economic prospect, the Global Apex Bank projects that growth in emerging markets and developing economies is expected to stabilize in 2020 as some countries move past periods of financial strain. Meanwhile, the bank noted that for sub-Saharan Africa, growth is expected to accelerate to 3.3% in 2020, assuming that investor sentiment towards some of the large economies of the region improves. The World Bank did indicate that per capita GDP is expected to rise in the region. It will nevertheless be insufficient to significantly reduce poverty. In 2020, growth in Angola is anticipated to pick up to 2.9%. Growth in Nigeria is anticipated to edge up to 2.2%, and growth in South Africa is anticipated to rise to 1.5%. In other stories, the financial markets are closed for business today. Tuesday and Wednesday for Eid al-Fitr celebrations. The Nigerian equities market maintained a bearish outing on Monday, having opened the week with a loss of 0.45%. The bearish trend was on the back of losses witnessed in highly capitalized equities. On how the Nigerian Stock Exchange has fared so far, the Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, Oscar Onyema, described the market as resilient.
I have to say that the market has proven itself to be extremely resilient, given the kind of volatility that we've seen from 2015, the 2016 economic downturns, and recovery in 2017, and 2018 being like a midway year, if you will, as people got ready for elections. The market, in all, has handled it well. And this is in a context where we're still trying to rebuild trust.
With business news, I'm Chimobi Walter Naji.
All right, thank you for the, of course, business package. Next is newspaper review.
Our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Atoyebe, is right here with us on the studios. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Kinsley. Good morning. Good morning, Claire.
I'm sure you're still in the Eid mood.
Yes, so it's still Barakah de Salam.
Absolutely. You're welcome. All right, let's begin by taking a look at the Punch, which is the first paper that we have. Obviously, as we would expect, there are photographs from the Eid al-Fitr celebrations yesterday. As you can see, it's a cross-section of Muslim faithful during the Eid al-Fitr celebration that took place at Ile-Zik in Ikeja, Lagos. That was yesterday. That's one of the photographs. Another photograph there showing the celebrations in Abule Egba location, another one in Abuja, and the other, of course, from Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. That's somewhere at Ibafo. Well, the lead story is a return to Abacha. It says, reactions as UK seizes fresh 82 billion naira Abacha loot. Reactions as UK seizes fresh 82 billion naira Abacha loot. Details can be found on page 3. Now, 2 earpieces there beside the nameplate of the Punch. Speakership, that's the kicker. CUPP rejects Gbajabiamila and drags him to court for alleged perjury. That's page 19. And PDP NWC, that's the National Working Committee, meets lawmakers-elect Thursday and Friday. That's this week. Details can be found on page 18. About the nameplate of the Punch, we have 4 headlines. NLC, that's Labour Congress, and experts lambaste federal government over high rail projects cost. Details on page 25. Corrupt customs officers and smugglers killing local rice production, page 2. APC says Oyegun condoned indiscipline as party chairman, that's page 19. And alleged 3.4 billion naira fraud, anti-graft agency recommends Emir of Kano's suspension. And right at the foot of the front page of the Punch newspaper, you have 3 headlines there. Goodwill messages on the occasion of Eid al-Fitr. Otom Abdul Razak Fayami, others greet Muslims. And Niger man kills neighbor for making advances to his wife. And 2 men arraigned for molesting 10-year-old in Katsina. Federal government begins 2020 budget preparation and warns against inflating costs. Page 25, Claire.
Yeah, let's look at Daily Trust now. And I'll begin just a little below the nameplate. Nigeria-US jersey to share Abacha's £210 million. And Buhari, why I must secure FCT despite voting for PDP. NACA processes 27 applications from prospective carriers. And the lead story, APC crisis or Shomole Oyegun trade blame for defeat in 5 states. And one of those picture stories Kinsley talked about, emanating from, of course, the Eid celebrations. And there you see the Emir of Kano and the Kano State Governor exchanging pleasantries. Now, stories trending at the bottom of the paper. Buhari has capacity to end insecurity. That's attributed to IBB. The details of that you can find on page 4. Nigeria's Professor Bande emerges anger president, page 3. And Salah, governors charge Nigerians on peaceful coexistence. That's the outlook of the Daily Trust. And we return to Bayo. Which of the stories?
Yes, let's start with Eid. And of course, because Eid was across the nation yesterday.
And peacefully too.
Yes, report is emphasizing the fact that it was marked all across the country peaceably. And particularly so that, particularly in the northeast, vehicular movement were restricted in Maiduguri and parts of Yobe, but there were no ugly incidents. However, imams at the praying centers or at the Eid grounds enjoyed increased prayers and devotion for peace. They also called for peaceful coexistence as a catalyst for socio-economic development. The other report you read, General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, says that he is confident in the ability of President Buhari to address the lingering security challenges in the country. He added that he argued that Nigerians should be patient with President Buhari. He says the president is not disposed to idle talk, and therefore Nigerians should hold Buhari by his words, adding that the resurging insecurity is only a temporary setback. He called on Nigerians to rally round and shun divisive tendencies. The spirit of togetherness, he says, must be sustained by all if the nation must move forward. There were also messages from the traditional thrones. The Emir of Zazzau, Alhaji Shehu Idris, enjoined his subjects in the emirate to resort to embrace farming elaborately as a means of enhancing their economic growth and that of the nation. He urged the federal and state governments to provide farm inputs to assist farmers in this year's farming season. Also from Benin, Oba of Benin, Owari II, has called on Nigerians to pray for their leaders. He said in his message that we should pray for our political, religious, and traditional rulers for Allah's wisdom to lead them and the country and her people to peace, unity, progress, and development. He said that the moment in our nation now calls for collective effort to surmount insecurity and enhance economic development of our nation and of the people. The other good news also came from the United Nations. Nigeria's Tijani Mohamed Bande has emerged the president of the 74th UN General Assembly. He is to assume that position in September. He was the sole candidate at the election and was so nominated by acclamation by the 87th plenary at New York. Professor Mohamed Bande is Nigeria's permanent representative of the UN. And his ascendance to the position of the UN is quite significant because the UN General Assembly is the only body with a universal representative for all nations. And its function primarily is to discuss, debate, and make recommendations by way of resolutions as issues pertaining to international peace, security, and development. He is not the first Nigerian to preside over the UNGA. The first was actually, you remember him? Nigeria's Major General Joseph Garba, late now. He was then Foreign Minister for Nigeria, and he was president of the 44th session between 1989 and 1990. In his acceptance speech, Professor Mohamed Bande thanked the federal government for nominating him and the African group also of the UN for endorsing his candidacy. He promised openness, inclusivity, as well as transparency. So that's another feather in the cap of Nigeria. And it's coming at a significant time when very soon there will be consideration about increasing the membership in the Security Council.
All right, that's very significant. Professor Mohamed Bande, of course, is a man of many achievements. He was Vice-Chancellor of Usman Dan Fodio University. And he was also Director General of NIPS, that is the Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies. And for many years, he was a visiting member of the editorial board of the Guardian newspapers. So he's a very well-respected academic, professor of political science, and all of that. But there's a story on the Abacha loot. I just wondered, Bayo, shall we ever get to the bottom of the Abacha loot? It's 21 years this month since Abacha died. And ever since, there have been revelations. I mean, during the first few months of General Abdulsalami Abubakar's administration, after he succeeded Abacha, part of the reforms that the family was said to have made was some 64 billion naira. Yes. That was in 1998. And since then, we'll be hearing of several millions of, hundreds of millions of naira from the Swiss government, and this is another latest tranche.
This latest one is it was published by a British daily, the Metro, and it says that the sum is about 211 million pounds, equivalent to about 82 billion naira by Nigeria's standard, and it is alleged that the money was laundered to a Channel Island bank through the United States, and it was believed and alleged to belong to the late General Sani Abacha. The sums have been recovered, but it is with the British government. The Metro reports that the money is being held until the Jersey, USA, and Nigeria can reach agreement. And therefore, there's prospect that at least if Nigeria moves along with Jersey, United States, and the British government,
the money will be shared.
There will be discussions about how to repatriate the money back. But sometime of recent, they have developed a condition by stipulating the projects of or what the money will be used for. It's a strategy to ensure that money laundered is not re-laundered.
Money looted.
What I'm not sure, the Daily Trust, in a version of that story, is saying that Nigeria, US, and Jersey, that's the bank, to share the money. I don't understand that.
Well, that's part of what may happen going forward. I mean, let's face it, it's 211 million pounds in the first instance. The money has been there for, Abacha died in 1998, so presumably let's assume that he put the money in there on the eve of his passing. So that's of 21 years. So that money should have been working for whoever was in possession of it. So the money had been yielding a lot of dividends, for whoever was in possession of it. Now, to retrieve that money, it's going to cost us a lot of resources because you have to engage negotiators. You engage negotiators. And, the fact is that once somebody has custody of your assets, the person of course, the person has the upper hand.
And it dictates the terms.
Absolutely. But the part of my concern is, do we have a sense of what went on in terms of the pillaging of the financial resources of this country during the Abacha years?
Well, things that are done in secrecy, not in the open. Certainly, nobody can put a hand on what the quantum is. Is as the revelations come, we begin to tally up and then.
That's right.
Let's hope this is the end. If it is not, if more comes, then the Nigeria will make it a priority to ensure that they are repatriated.
And then you would just ask us, those who were around at the time and who knew what was going on, how many new refineries the loot could have built at the time? How many kilometers of standard gauge railway lines the loot could have built? Or, for instance, how many power stations? There were no power plants built during that time. All right, Bayo, that's...
You have
the I have the editorial, and it's from Daily Sun newspaper, and it's at page 15. Blacklisting chronic bank debtors. This is fairly straightforward in terms of the headline and in terms of what it's saying.
Yes. Well, blacklisting chronic bank debtors is the challenge to chief executive of banks. And not only that, not because they want to recover their bad debts, but they are worried because they say security agencies are at their back, and therefore they now have put pressure on them. And so the chief executives at their last meeting said that they are now compelled, they promised that they are going to provide a list of such bad debtors, and they will share it among banks. And the initiative is to ensure that you don't run from one bank and then go and get loans from other banks. And secondly, they want to make sure that they put their collective hands on deck to ensure that the law enforcement agencies have a list of the persons and any criminal activities that are supposed to follow from that debt can be pursued, so that they too can have some reprieve from the pressures from the security agencies. They also say that the non-performing loans have amounted to about 1 trillion. And if this is not handled properly, it could lead into another distress into the banking industry. Therefore, they are now also urging that government should ensure that those persons that have been involved in this chronic debt are not allowed to have dealings with ministries, departments, and agencies. Therefore, you deny them access to potential contracts and activities.
Yeah, if you recall, some years ago, there was naming and shaming of bank debtors, whereby the names of some debtors, the names were published, but it generated a lot of controversy because there were names that were included and those persons protested. But it's useful to have a register of chronic debtors, and there must be ways of dealing with those chronic debtors. But critically, for banks themselves, this has to do with their management of credit. Who are their credit officers? What kind of training do they have? Yeah, I mean, because actually bad debts can cripple a financial institution. So if there is no due diligence before these loans are advanced to these so-called chronic debtors, some of them, you find them living big and large all over the place, what then happens? So the banks have to look inwards and see what their credit guidelines are before advancing credit, to these so-called credit debtors.
It's part of the pressure that has been compiled. Of recent, AMCON too is at their back. Some of the bank had some what do you call it, widow's mite to keep them afloat, and therefore AMCON is at their beck and call, asking for refund, and that's why they must do something about this.
All right, Bayo, thank you. That should be all we have time for today. There are other issues, of course, involving the banks. Talk about contract workers hitting record high of over 46,000, staff and all that. But Bayo,
I'm sorry, Bayo is going now. Just to mention that in passing, the old familiar disease with Nigerian football is back. They said the Flying Eagles players were protesting that they were not going to vacate their hotels because they had not been paid their bonuses. They were supposed to have left yesterday, but they didn't leave their hotel rooms.
All right, we'll be back. We'll be right back. Don't go away. This is Good Morning Nigeria.
They are there at the crack of dawn. They are there busy preparing while we rise for our day. They are there silently, guarding, waiting, listening, and watching. They are there ready in the sky above and the waters below, in the blistering heat of the day, in the dead of night, willing, indefatigable, determined in the defense of the sovereignty of our country. They are our first line of defense and our last. They who have paid the ultimate price in defending us. They are fathers and uncles. They are mothers and sisters and girlfriends and boyfriends. They are brothers and cousins and best friends and neighbors. They are classmates, colleagues, and citizens of this nation. They are our defenders and deserve our respect, our prayers, our thoughts. Nigeria, please support our armed forces.
One football confederation, 24 teams, 6 stadiums, 4 cities, 504 African stars, 1 trophy. The Africa Cup of Nations Egypt 2019 comes alive from June 21 with the showpiece final on July 19, 2019. Watch the 52 matches of the tournament live on Africa's biggest and largest television network, NTA, in partnership with Hot Sports. Be part of the biggest soccer fiesta in the African continent as the Super Eagles go on a bold mission to clinch the prestigious title for the 4th time, to the excitement of millions of fans across the length and breadth of Nigeria. For inquiries, please contact Abubakar on 0803-331-0175 and Felix on 0803-308-2375. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
What we are really cultivating here is a better future for all Nigerian women, and it's not always easy. Panadol Extra relieves headache, backache, joint pain, toothache, and menstrual pain. The pain is worth it.
All right, you're welcome back, and let's say Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. As we informed you earlier, Nigeria is to lead the 74th session of the United Nations General Assembly from September this year. And this, of course, follows the unanimous election of Nigeria's permanent rep to United Nations. That's Ambassador Tijani Mohammed Bande. The election took place yesterday in New York. Now we have joining us via Skype this morning to discuss the development, Malam Garba Shehu, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity. Malam Garba, pleasure to have you with us. We know it's small hours in New York at this time, 5 hours behind us. But give us a sense of what transpired yesterday at the United Nations.
Well, thank you for giving us this opportunity. The sound is a bit scrappy, but the sense I make of your question is what happened yesterday and how did it go? I want to say that Nigeria recorded a major milestone in international affairs yesterday. Yes, it is true that we had been there before. About 30 years ago, the 44th session was led by the late Major General Joseph Garba as Nigeria's permanent representatives. But the important thing is that 30 years after we are back here, an indication that we have recovered lost mileage all over again, and Nigeria's greatness, Nigeria's power, Nigeria's influence in the international community has come back all over again. The choice of Bande by this country and his posting is recognized. It's as something that is working well, for the country. We have seen how barely 2 years in the office, this gentleman, a scholar, a researcher, and an administrator had blended so well in the United Nations. He has become so part of the system. He received a standing ovation yesterday, upon his own election. He was literally on first name terms with virtually everyone, about 200 national representatives, on the floor. So therefore, it is to say that we have got effectiveness of our own international relations back in place, and our influence is back all over again as a major influence in international affairs.
All right, Malam Garba Shehu, thank you very much, and Eid Mubarak to you. Given the fact that, the election of His Excellency Professor Bande was almost in no contest, of course, we know the unanimity of the acclamation. The delegation sent by the President, what kind of support did they provide?
Well, you know that it is important that there seems to be this connection between what our representative here is doing and his home government. As members of this delegation, we were given front row seats, literally speaking, and recognition was offered by the outgoing president, indicating that for Nigeria, this is a very important international moment. Much of the work had been done preceding, the arrival in 48 hours before the election by this delegation. Much of it is owed, as I said, to the effectiveness of Nigeria's ambassador on the ground. But this country had quietly worked with all of the international groups, given assurances that there would be inclusivity in our leadership of the United Nations. So in effect, our presence here is symbolic, is to show that the entire Nigerian nation is behind this very successful ambassador who is effective in the United Nations.
Well, Malam Garba Shehu, you're part of the President's delegation to the General Assembly, to the UN. What was the President's reaction upon learning that it was a done deal with the election of Professor Muhammad Bande?
Well, I would not say that there was any shock or surprise because this had been anticipated. As I said, a lot of work had been done prior to this day. It couldn't be that Professor Bande would himself be alone on the stage if we hadn't achieved consensus first on the African continent, because this position was zoned to Africa. It's a rotatory, responsibility. Once it came to Africa and Nigeria raised her hand, then of course, from country to country, our diplomats lobbied everyone. So what was the president? The president was extremely happy and delighted, and going forward, certainly the president would be making a statement when he receives Professor Bande in the coming days or weeks. Bande would clear a few things here, and certainly will be eager to come home to report to Mr. President.
All right, we would like for you to give us an insight, because the outgoing president, that's of course the 73rd president, Espinosa, as well as the UN Secretary General, all welcomed the 74th president with such glowing words as outstanding, and of course having a wealth of experience as a scholar and as a political scientist and all that. But specifically, the president talked about the fact that he was coming at such a critical time in the life of the UN. Can you give us an insight what the UN 74th UNGA might be, the weight of responsibility on this new president?
Well, you know that the essence of the General Assembly is that it represents the aspirations and the moral authority of all nations of the world. And so therefore, it's been effective in doing a lot of things, determining, international agenda would then be a key part of this gentleman's responsibility. If you are the leader, you have, before coming to the office, campaigned and issued a statement of intent, using which you have canvassed for support among all of the delegations. So you have a clear indication that this is where you want to drive the UN system, the direction in which you want to drive the UN system in terms of the pursuit of the objectives of the UN and the challenges that the UN itself, faces. Take, for examples, matters that may look, for some that can be taken for granted. Bande had spoken about education, not because he has a background of being a scholar or a teacher. Things like primary education, for many nations, especially on our own continent and among our own populations, access to primary education itself is not even there. And there's a need to bring international awareness to some of these things so that there is an understanding that these are things that are taken for granted, in other nations. So he has this very important role to bring international spotlight to bear on matters that are important to Nigeria, that are important to the African continent, while in effect carrying along with him, the international community in doing this.
All right, Malaga Bashir, thank you very much. But still on the issues, from your own journalistic background, quite aside from what you have ticked off as the addition of what the president-elect might bring on to the UN General Assembly from September, some analysts are already saying that in addition to terrorism, violent extremism, issues of poverty and climate change, that we also have to be on the lookout, for instance, to the ongoing spat between the U.S. and China. What are likely to be the trickle-down consequences of that in terms of the trade war? And, of course, Iran is there, and North Korea is also there. So it looks like his plate will be full.
Well, Professor Bande has spoken very strongly on an important issue. The UN system is supposed to operate on the basis of inclusiveness and multilateralism. Yes, over the years, nations have tended to think and act alone. dealing with international matters, and some of these have come with consequences. But it has been proven over time that where there is the coming together of all nations to decide and take decisions on this matter, multilateralism, where multilateralism rules the day, there are likely to be consequences such as war that can break out. So Professor Bande is conscious of this, as you have said yourself, given his scholarship and understanding and background that he brings to this job, we are likely to see him driving the UN system in a direction that brings countries together rather than going, nations going apart and acting alone.
All right, let's quickly look at the issue. If you look at some of the issues that the incoming president, noted, issues of, terrorism and all that, most of those are encapsulated in the Sustainable Development Goals. But beyond that, and looking globally, the General Assembly is also, getting more powers now because of the controversies, of course, that, come with issues of vetoing at the Security Council. Nigeria is aspiring to become a member of the Security Council. Is this also on the table for him?
Oh, you know that the issue of reforming the UN system has been an ongoing discussion. Again, while there are some nations, including Nigeria, who wish to see a speedier movement in that direction, obviously driven by our own aspiration to be in that, exclusive club, there are also nations that are slowing it down. So again, there is a need to give impetus and drive to this. And yes, Professor Bande has given all the assurances, and look, Bande is one of the most, from what we've seen, is one of the most respected, ambassadors in the United Nations today. And there's so much hope in him that on this particular issue that you have raised, that he is going to move it. It may not be complete within his own time, but this issue of reform is key on the items he wishes to pursue, and we would see a further momentum and enhancement of the process. Who knows whether this can be concluded while he's under his own presidency.
Well, Malam Garba, you've accompanied President Buhari to the United Nations on a number of occasions, and indeed other international fora. And one of the many issues that the president has often raised has to do with the proceeds of corruption and how the receivers of Nigeria's stolen wealth, could be prevailed upon to repatriate those looted assets without further preconditions. But of course, we know how the global financial system works. The UN itself already has an agency dealing with drugs and corruption, but it remains, a challenging issue how to retrieve those assets that are already in the custody of the receiving state. Is this a matter that Nigeria would like to push under the presidency of Professor Bande?
In a nutshell, yes, you are absolutely correct there, because Professor Bande is there as an encapsulation. He represents the aspirations of Nigeria. He represents the aspirations of the continent of Africa. I think this is the very essence of this. The General Assembly does not have power to pass binding resolutions, unlike the Security Council. However, the moral weight of such resolutions are such that they tie you to, they compel actions in many instances. So I don't want to be seen to be underrating what other nations think or trying to insult the sensibilities of other countries, but it is logical to assume that there is going to be a direct linkage between Nigeria's aspirations on the international scene, the aspirations of the African continent, and the day-to-day running of the presidency of the UN by Professor Bande beginning in September. So yes, this is an issue that is important to Nigeria. This is an issue that would be spotlighted, would be highlighted by the Bande presidency, and we hope that it will take us forward.
All right, Malam Garba Shehu, let's allow you to go take some rest now. Of course, there'll be so much more to talk about when you and the delegation return back to Nigeria. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, I appreciate.
All right, that was Malam Garba Shehu, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, joining us via Skype live from New York. This is Good Morning Nigeria. If you're just joining us, topic next is looking at 20 years of unbroken democracy for Nigeria. We'll be right back.
Television College Jos announces admissions into 2-year diploma programs in film and television production, television engineering, and broadcast journalism. The sale of forms will commence on the 13th of May and run through 30th July 2019. Admission forms can be obtained from all marketing offices, NTA state capital stations, zonal centers, or at the office of the academic secretary, NTA Television College, Rayfield, Jos.
On payment of a non-refundable fee of 7,500 naira in bank draft in favor of NTA TV College. Applicants can also obtain the forms through the NTA TV College portal at www.ntatvc.edu.nj.
Applicants are required to possess 5 credits in GCE or SSCE in relevant areas of study in not more than 2 sittings, including English and mathematics. All properly completed forms attached with photocopies of credentials must be submitted on or before 30th July 2019. For further inquiries, please visit our website at ntatvc.com or call 0803 3144 383.
NTA TV College, training you to be the best you want to be.
Registrar, Announcer.
Won't kill you. Move now.
To they disobey traffic law, they cause accidents. Me, I don't talk, say, I no go dey do am again because change begins with me.
I will no longer endanger my life crossing the express. Instead, I will use the bridge because change begins with me.
Oga driver, stop this bus now, won't come down. I be one carry me past where they go.
Make her they stop anyhow for road, they cause traffic wahala and accidents. So I go they stop for the right bus stop because change begins with me.
Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, welcome back from wherever you're watching. This is Good Morning Nigeria, and we're live here in Abuja. Let's listen into Victor Azuz's background report as, of course, we begin our conversation on 20 years of Nigeria's unbroken democracy.
We've seen that government is not answerable to the people that put them there. Because the military were not answerable to the people. In fact, some of them will tell you that they are not here through the will of the people. So they are not answerable. They just did their best to respond to the will of the people. But now we have a government that is there which comports its affairs in accordance with the rule of law and constitutionalism, which we didn't have before. And the fact that we are operating under a constitution has a lot of implications. For instance, freedom, which people have, fair trial, fair hearing, absence of restriction of freedom of movement, and so forth and so on, which were abridged, very much abridged under the military rule.
Over the years, you have seen that they are enthusiastic in electing their leaders. They enjoy the opportunity to elect their leaders. They love the fact that they have a say in who rules them. And they can ask questions. They do ask questions, which was not possible under the experience we've had in Nigeria. So I believe that Nigerians prefer democracy, and they will also love to see it grow until it gets to where they really want it to be.
Nigeria has enjoyed democracy, but there are various room for improvement, and those improvements can level very clearly in terms of education, in terms of power supply, in terms of ensuring there is gainful employment for the Nigerians, and then transforming the economy in such a way that Nigerians will feel that there is governance for the people. Meanwhile, I think democracy is so good for Nigerians.
All right, now those were excerpts from our last conversation on 20 years of democracy in Nigeria. That's 1999 to 2019. We have guests with us in the studios as well as at one of our network centers, and we'll get another guest via Skype. Let's welcome Alhaji Shitu Kabir Mohammed. Alhaji Kabir Mohammed is the pioneer chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC, and also was a presidential candidate in this year's general elections. Madam Kabir Mohammed, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Good morning. Thank you.
Also here with us in the studios, we would like to welcome Abdullahi Mustafa. Abdullahi Mustafa, of course, is a Nigerian in diaspora. He lives in Manchester in the United Kingdom. Abdullahi Mustafa, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Good morning.
Okay.
It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, Kesley. All right, let's bring in Professor Deng Pang Shah, a political scientist at the University of Jos. Prof, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
All right, Kinsley.
All right. Well, gentlemen, I mean, as you heard from our introduction, we are looking at 20 years of unbroken democratic governance in Nigeria. From your perspective, what have been the gains and what have been the pains?
20 years of democratic. Now, in Nigeria, we would say the gain here is that we have been able, for the first time, after some 3 consecutive regimes, we've been able to now put up as a democratic process that has been everlasting. At least we haven't got it to 20 years that we have today. And it has already, Nigerians are known today that there is no other alternative to governance than the democratic process. 20 years down the line, we couldn't have, if it is in those days, after election, what people calls for is military, instead of going into litigations. Rather, they will call for military incursion. 20 years down the line, we have seen that the military have been relegated back to the barrack. And it has been in the conscience of Nigerians that it is time that democratic process is to be enhanced. Though some people will say we are still nascent democracy, I believe that we have gone now beyond nascent. What we just need is to now enhance the process by putting up some legislatives that will help to broaden the democratic space and allow inclusiveness as it is. For I will say that all the indices that help democratic process has been put in place. You find out that with even the judgment of Zamfara and Co., you see that judiciary are independent. You see that the issue of checks and balances is it's been done. The judiciary, the executives, and the legislatures, you see this, how robust it has been this last 8 to 12 years into the democratic process. The judiciary are like watchdog, and they are independent. And you see that the legislators are also on their own, like watchdog. And executive are put on their toes. And I believe that Nigerian has come to embrace democracy, and no military will take risk today of incursion into this democratic process. They know that Nigerian will rise against them.
All right, let's put you on hold, Malam Kabir Shitu, and bring in Professor Dongpang Shah, who is a political scientist from our JOS Network Center. Prof, I'd like for you, Malam Kabir here has, of course, set the background. He said, of course, we're no longer growing, that Nigeria's democracy has come of age. The indices, for democratic institution are there. But without begging the question, have we mastered the art?
Well, I think we should thank all Nigerians who have really stood by and who have really worked, for the experience that we've had, 20 years, 19, 20 years now. After the military withdrew, I agree with him that citizens have been the ones that have really kept the process going. Each time elections are organized, they're out there in the rains and the sun and voting and casting their votes, for leaders to emerge. So I think that we need to congratulate ourselves. The second point I think we should note as Nigerians is that we have had, at least now, institutions that have grown, established and are now growing. Political parties are there, the parliament is there, the judiciary, like you said, is working, the legislature is also working. But I think we need to do more evaluation, and the performance of these institutions, and even the behaviors, of actors, in these institutions. For us to make a very good judgment of where we are today and where we are expected, to be. Are we really slow in developing, or we are rapidly developing, or we are not developing at all? Several reports have been written on global democracy, and Nigeria has not been left out of it. Some have seen democracy as, a process that is at a standstill. Some say we are retreating, from the successes that were made initially. Some even say that we are in a political recession, meaning that we are not making headway, and that benefits and steps that we had taken, forward steps that we've taken, were regressing. And I think that it's something that we need to reflect on very carefully. For me, we may argue that there has been too much politics with too little democracy. And what I mean by that is that probably we may argue that we have our constitutions, without constitutionalism. And what that means is that we have a document that we call the Constitution, but we are not practicing this. We're not following the rules and regulations that contain, in this Constitution. Some would also argue, and I would also agree with that we have political parties, but they're not politicking. Political parties have been created, and what we all know what political parties do in Nigeria, especially those that have not really been pushful in contesting elections and looking for political positions. Some of them are just formed, for transactional purposes, to get recognition and to get contracts, from government in office, whether at the local government or states or federal level. So these political parties are not really politicking in a manner that will, help Nigerians, to grow. After all, some of us argue that we need political parties to be formed, but this is not the kind of political parties that we need in Nigeria. They must be up and doing in moving this country forward. They must be up and doing, canvassing for political positions, not just formation for the sake of formation and for transactional purposes. I also think that we need to evaluate the legislature. The legislature is there. Yes, it's an institution. We have seen it in and out. Many have come in and some have gone out. Some are still there. But the performance, has to be evaluated. And I think that apart from the cries that the huge budgets, that sustain the legislature, is a basic problem, for democracy in this country. Because if you calculate the budget, that is sustaining the legislature, we think that that money, should be deployed to provide services and provide facilities and welfare for Nigerians. But in evaluating the legislature, I think that they have tried in some way, at least rules or regulations, or bills, laws, have been passed. But the relationship with the executive, has been soured, especially in the last dispensation, 2015 to 2019.
All right, Professor Dung Pamsha, thank you very much. We'll return to you later on in the course of this conversation. Will it indicate that we were going to be joined by another guest via Skype? We understand that the Skype connection is through now. That's, of course, it was a guest that we've had from time to time. Professor Joy Ezilo, the Faculty of Law, University of Nigeria, Enugu campus. But she's joining us this time from Vancouver in Canada. So, Professor Joy Ezilo, pleasure to have you with us. We know that it's around about midnight in Vancouver at this time, and so you probably will be having a sleepy head, but quite clearly you're in the mood to contribute to our conversation this morning. Once again, welcome to the program, and shoot straight away, telling us what your assessment is of Nigeria's 20 years of uninterrupted democracy.
Yeah, thank you so much. We've come a long way so far. We are not yet there, but we are not alone. We know democracy in the world we live in. Half of countries of the world practice democracy, but from available statistics, less than 5% have full democracy. We are far away from having full democracy. But what is important is to measure our success or how far we've come using the maybe 4 or 5 cardinal pillars of democracy, one of which is rule of law, the issue of free and fair election, functional government, which is about transparency, and also rights and freedoms in terms of citizens' rights and to what extent they enjoy that. Of importance, the 5th pillar is one about political participation, which is inclusion of the citizen. To what extent do they participate? Because the simple meaning of democracy is democracy is the government of the people by the people. And that means men, women, youth, and everyone should be involved in that government. So if you look at all of these pillars, then we can begin to talk independently, looking at each of them, the extent Nigeria has come. With regard to free and fair election, we know it's still a challenge, but at least we've had the 5th successful election, which we can say, okay, we are on course. With regard to citizen right, fundamental right and freedom, which there are many aspects to that, including right to food, right to dignity of persons, to life, security, and all of that. With regard to that, we are still having major challenges. On the issue of rule of law, which is independent of democracy, we still have a problem. Transparency, accountability, the functionality of government, to the political culture itself is problematic. But let's talk about participation. I think participation is key, is very central to survival of any democracy. And with that participation, half of Nigerians, and I mean women and youth, especially women, have been marginalized or have been excluded. Political representation of the female gender has declined over the years, and that retrogression is unprecedented, especially in civilized sociology. We have seen increased agitation for not just in Nigeria, for around the world. We've seen significant improvement even in Africa in terms of women's representation, and a very prominent the so-called giant of Africa, which is my country, Nigeria, ought to be setting the pace. But unfortunately, we've seen a steady decline in the number of women elected into political position, including for appointed position. And this is a major source, because if you look at the even more Ibrahim Index or the World Economic Forum Index, you will see that Nigeria is just beating about 9 countries. And this is sad that our own democracy is not engendered. It means also is in danger. And it means that we've excluded half of Nigerians, especially the potential they have, because I believe that women, not just because I'm a woman, have the potential to raise the quality of leadership. And democracy is about inclusion. So it is a matter of right also that the female gender should be included. Now that we have, after the 2019 general election, less than 6% representation of women in terms of women elected into the National Assembly and House of Assembly all over Nigeria. I think the government can only make up this by ensuring more women, that more women are brought in into through appointing positions. We have a national gender policy that stipulates 35%. We are very much off that mark. But in any case, we are even moving to 50-50%, as we've seen in many other democracies, including in Africa. Nigeria shouldn't be a laggard in any way. Rather, we should be setting the pace for others to follow. So there are a number of things, functioning of government, for any government to function, and part of accountability includes gender accountability. We need to work on that. We practice multi-party system. We have a number of political parties. We've seen through this election how far we've come in that direction, but still we need to now begin to ensure that political parties are really helping the democratic process and doing what should be their function, including civic education, political education, and helping to build a formidable democracy, because that democratic culture is yet to take root, and we all have a role to play in that, and the political parties in particularly have a core role to ensure that this is happening. We're not seeing a lot of that. You can see from voided vote that a lot of people are not doing the right thing, and the electorate are yet to get into the. So it means the political parties themselves are not doing their work. So in a number of areas, we have to make improvement. But I would say, to God be the glory, that's 20 years practice of democracy. There is a lot of room for improvement. It's not yet Uhuru. Our work is far from being done, but steadily all of us can march and with inclusive government towards that goal of, I wouldn't even say full democracy at this stage, but that should be the aspiration, to have a full functional democracy in Nigeria.
All right, Professor Ezilo, staying with you just before we bring in the guests here in the studio. Malam Kabiru, who himself, of course, a renowned politician, teed off the fact that it will be suicidal, if any uniformed, men should attempt to usurp power at this time because of, the reaction that, the Nigerian people, that will come from the Nigerian people. Do you see that as mainstreaming the people within the democratic process? Is it part of an achievement that the people are now having an understanding of this aspect?
Yeah, is it the aspect of, just take that again, I think there was a little break.
Is it part of an achievement that Nigerians now know, the value of a democratic, institution, democratic rule?
Yeah, no, Nigerians know that we are in a democratic route. That's it, one thing. But then the democratic institutions have to be functional, and the citizens have to enjoy their rights, which is the fundamental right and freedom is also part of it. And then within that, we also have our civic responsibility as Nigerians, we should take seriously. That as we march even to this march forward, we should be looking at even compulsory voting and making sure that people register and vote and exercise their franchise. We should be looking at things around patriotism, and we'll be because part of our problem is that we don't have enough patriotic Nigerians who will put the love of country first before their own personal interest. And we need to, that is part of democracy that we need to continue to solidify and work on. Civil liberties, of course, is all part of lack of political culture that is needed for the survival of our democracy.
All right, Professor Joy Zullo, thank you very much. Let's bring in Abdullahi Mustafa, who is, of course, a Nigerian in diaspora in the United Kingdom. 20 years on for our democracy, what's your assessment?
Okay, first of all, I would like to say Eid Mubarak to my brothers and sisters over there. I think democracy is the best thing that have ever happened to Nigeria. Let me start by talking about the advantages. The most important thing democracy has brought to Nigeria is the right to vote. So we can't take that away. I mean, the fact that the people have the right to vote is actually enough. We can't dispute that. There are a lot of setbacks. We are not there yet, but we are going to get there. The definition of democracy, let me start by defining democracy. Democracy is actually a government of the people, for the people, by the people. So we will ask ourselves now, are we really a democratic nation? If we say yes, which I think is yes, what kind of democracy do we practice? Are we in? So for us to ascertain that, we will have to actually talk about the pillars, which one of our guests have talked about, which are the basic principle of democracy. The first one, we will be talking about the sovereignty of the people, the right of the people. How much have they been part of the democratic system? In that aspect, I would say yes, people have been part of it, but the problem now is that we have in Nigeria is particularly the right or people involvement. Unfortunately, the politicians we have, they bring policies. The policies we have in ground is not really about how it affects the people, but how the policies win election for them. And which I think that has to change. I mean, the policies are supposed to be how will the people be affected directly, how it will change the life of the people, but not how, not what we're seeing now. I mean, most of the policies are really how will the Godfather, I mean, how much is it going to bring to the people that sponsors the political parties, or really how they win the election, which is what they focus on. The other advantage is accountability. I mean, we can't take that away because during the dictatorship, during the military era, there is nothing like accountability. I mean, they do what they want, and they have their constitution. They are the constitution themselves. They are not being guided by constitution, but democracy has actually brought to us direction. So there is a lot of accountability, there's transparency. We see what they tell us. Even if they lie, they have to tell us what the funds have been used for. Another advantage, I think, of democracy, which we are enjoying, or we've enjoyed so far, is equality. I think people have been given right to participate. You've been given right to say whatever you want to say in the media. Anybody can come out and register a political party and participate. Well, the only setback in that is, I don't know, but I'm not sure if independent candidacy has been approved in Nigeria political system, because I've not seen anybody contesting independently. The political parties have their own I think restrictions. They are very, very expensive. One can't just come up and say, okay, because I have this policy that would change the people, and I want to stand. I mean, the first thing is, how much do you have the money? Can you buy the votes? Can you buy even the ticket itself? The delegates have to be bought off. So, I mean, that's actually a very, very big setback. So I think we have to look at maybe the independent candidacy, because that gives everybody the right to come up with, to contest.
All right, Abdullahi Mustafa, thank you very much. Independent candidacy, of course, will be a function of an amendment to the Constitution. And in the latest round to amend the Constitution, independent candidacy was proposed, but it was struck down. So it didn't pass through. So now you still have to go to the instrumentality of political parties, which is one of the pillars that Professor Joe Ezolo was talking about in terms of citizen participation and therefore the platform that you use. I'd like to return to Professor Dung Pamsha in Jos. Professor Dung Pamsha, let's talk about this. Democracy is not an end in itself. So the question arises, in 20 years, has our democracy delivered the public goods? And if so, what's been the quality of the public goods that we have had in 20 years?
Yeah, good question. I think one of the functions of democracy is for actors who operate it, to deliver to citizens welfare, like I said initially. And I think that we still have a lot of problems, with this. A number of factors, can be adduced to explain why we have not seen, democracy delivery, on the promises of politicians and other actors who are within the center or the periphery, of governance. I think one of the points that we must mention is that for 20 years, we still have a lot of problems with health, with education, water, sanitation, very basic things that Nigerians, are expected to benefit, from governance, from supposedly, free democratic system which has been established. So we still have these problems. Nigerians still go to streams, to fetch water. Well, Nigerians still just rely, on the personal or some private, individuals who pretend, to provide health services. Nigerians still go to those places. And so where are our health facilities? What quantum of budget goes to health? What quantum of the budget that goes to health is used for the delivery, of healthcare services? So I think that we still have problems in that area. Education. When my colleagues in us, when we go on strike, we do not go on strike basically or basically, for pay. But we go on strike for the system, to be improved, for our laboratories, to have the equipment that we require, for reagents, to be provided for work to go on with students, for the system to get well-grounded, and let us look at institutions that are giving out knowledge, in the 21st century. We shouldn't be seen as, institutions or like glorified primary schools or secondary schools. This is what we expect, democracy to deliver. And I think painting this picture, one of the reasons that I think I would adduce for this poor attitude, towards the delivery of services and welfare to Nigerians is the interests that is embedded, in policies, interest that is embedded in the actors, that take these policies, interest that is embedded in the execution of the programs and projects. I know that governments, for the past 20 years have adopted one program or the other, but in terms of the performance, in terms of the fulfillment of the goals, we shouldn't be talking now of Nigerians still going to the streams, Nigerians not going to school. The federal government just revealed that they were unable, to take children out of the streets, for the past 5 years. So we think that there is a very basic problem, with our Democrats, who are expected, to work assiduously to deliver services and welfare to Nigerians. And we need to drum, seriously on and even bang the table sometimes to make the point that, look, we need things to change. This is a government who's talking about next level. We need to see the next level happening in concrete terms. We need to see people, being happy, that they now have a government, that will provide. So corruption has actually been a problem. The lack of political will even to deliver. When budgets are made, they are not really used for the purpose that they are expected to be used for. So we are still back, to talk and address, issues, of welfare 20 years after when we said the military was not doing very well. So I think that it's a time for us to evaluate very well and see how this present regime will take us to the next level.
All right, Prof, thank you very much. Again, let's quickly, just before we bring in Malam Shitu Kabiru here, Professor Joy Ezilo, you're joining us again via Skype from Vancouver. The fact that we're having this conversation about, 20 years of Nigeria's democracy, means, of course, that we assume that at 20 years, there are certain, landmark achievement. And if you compare, a 20-year-old and the quality of growth and development now, I want you to tell us what, in terms of quality and numbers, how far do you think we should have come now? And of course, are we, progressively, getting towards that point?
Yeah, in terms of course, the democracy we're all in agreement that we haven't scored very highly as we would like to, because 20 years is not 2 years. But we know also that even from studies that have come, and it's a bit of consolation, there are less than 5% of all the countries in the world have full democracy. By the way, we have about 50% practicing democracy, and that even some countries have dropped, even within 1 year dropped, meaning that democracy is under threat all over the world. And that is also calling for action to strengthen and build institutions that are central to democracy. We have to think of, if we're talking of constitutional democracy, the principles of that constitutionalism being reinforced in practice, and the quality of the democracy or the functioning of government, having also the checks and balances and making sure that government work for the people, because the people are the ones that ultimately are supposed to be the beneficiaries of that democracy. But is it working for the people? It is not working for the people, because the issues that are so central to that, even right to livelihood is under threat, human security is a problem, and freedom from fear and want is a major issue. And all of that goes to the quality of life and what the expectations are of the people. So we all need to, especially the government, to be able to hold the government to account. And but the government or leadership is not one thing, because at all levels there is a problem. And it's not just at the level of even the government, so to speak, but also even at the level of private sector, even at the level of also the flowers. So is a work. It calls for a multi-pronged action, concerted effort by civil society, by also political parties. But what we have, and I repeat, the problem is that the country, there are very disparate interests, of course, and many nations within the nation state Nigeria. We haven't made the kind of progress we expected. In fact, think of rule of law and judiciary have never come under the kind of threat it's facing. It appears that a rehash of even back days of military, and we hope that all of this we can improve. But then we have things also to be happy about. There have been also recorded a major improvement in certain sectors, and we hope that going forward, that those areas that we've done well, that will continue to sustain that level. For example, today also Nigeria is a force to be reckoned in the world. We just had the Nigerian ambassador being elected as a United Nations General Assembly President. We have a deputy Secretary General in Nigeria, and we are holding our own in industry and in terms of the human resources capacity and contribution to world affairs. So we have people with capacity, the competence, and the character. But it's to find these people and ensure, not finding them. Some of them are even willing to serve, but the political patronage system is such that doesn't always bring out the best people that will put self before, put country before self. And we need to go beyond that, bring in more the business of government. Is too serious to be left to politicians alone. And we have to, everyone has to be involved. Participation is crucial. And I repeat it, participation by the diversity of entire Nigerian society, especially women, is also crucial. And I hope that we can bring more youth, bring in more women into this government as they constitute the government, especially in appointment of ministers and other leadership, other position of power.
All right, Professor Izilo, thank you. Just before we take our tweets, I'd like to return to Malam Shitu Kabir. You earlier on talked about, and everybody, indeed, have also talked about our gains, from the democracy. But we've also had reversals, and that's why we see sometimes we talk about the huge infrastructural gap in almost all sectors. We talk about, in road, we make gains and then we revert to, to status quo in power, in health. In fact, some people say, look, whatever we have gained in the health sector is just mere, very marginal, from what they used to be. So what, as a politician, would you say has been the sore points?
For us, the sore point is that, one, as a country, we borrow the democratic process. We call it presidential system. And then we also borrow the economic system. As a nation and as a country, it is 20 years down the line now. We must sit down and look at how do we fashion our own democratic process in line with our own culture and belief. And so also, how do we fashion our economic blueprint or economic process according to our own culture and belief. Why I say this is that we blame ourselves, we do. When you look at the presidential system of government as it's practiced, you have about 5 countries that practice this presidential system. And if you look at Nigerian context, we see some people are now calling for state police, state this, state that. You have the exclusive and the exclusive list in which the federal government are the whole one of it, especially when you come into mineral resources, security and co. It is time we look at this area and look at what will benefit the state. If it is in the exclusive list, we take it out and be able to allow states and local government. And that is why I support NFIU, and Nigerian Financial Institute, who says that let the local government fund go direct to the local government, because I'm now talking of economic, every economy process start from local government, because it is in the local government you have the land. It is in the local government that the citizens can now go into processing of their own product. It is the same local government that infrastructures can spring up. When we are talking with our man, you ask him, he said he lives in Manchester and he's very proud of that. Today, I cannot be proud to tell you that I'm from Efuru and I'm staying in Efuru. I will look at it, it's a bush. I should tell you I'm staying in Asaba or in Warri. So, because...
Efuru is not bush.
I'm just giving you.
Did you say Efuru?
I know Efuru in Wari.
Yes,
Efuru in Wari. I know I'm hitting at you. I'm hitting at, okay, Pretro. Let's say Pretro in Bayelsa State. If you want me to go further into the creek.
Mention one bush from your location.
Eh?
Mention a bush from your area.
Why?
No, so that people
okay, let's say from Gwagwa. Gwagwa in Abuja. If I tell you, yes, if I tell you today that, okay, I come here from Gwagwa, I feel why should I? People will say, I'm in Abuja. Where are you? I'm in Maitama or this. Why? Because we did not improve infrastructures of those areas and allow industries. Let's assume what we grow there is yam. The municipal local government will now take yam processing into Gwagwa, develop that yam plantation, and put up structures that I don't even need to be inside Gariki or Maitama. I'll be proud. I would like to stay there because that is where I get my daily income. Where I'm going, let me not digest from our discussion here. Where I'm going is that our economic blueprint from day one is wrong. And our political system is also a little wrong. It is time as a country that we come together, whatever and how we want to do it, and make sure that we streamline our own economy and political system. And I want to give you politically, if today you are talking of political parties, are too much at this, you have over 1,000 political parties in India. You have over 100 and something political parties in the United States of America. But what they did that we didn't do is that there are parties that are just on county, that is local government. There are parties that are for states. There are parties that are called national, which is Republican and Democrat. But every party in Nigeria wants to be national party, want to contest presidency, until we bring a legislation where you say, let's assume you have 2 million followers. Then you can be confined to where you have that 2 million followers if it is within a local government. If you have 30 million followers, then you can now be called national political parties. Those are reforms that will also allow democratic process and then enhance political system.
All right, thank you very much for your points. Now, as my colleague Claire indicated, we have some tweets that have come in. We'll go through them now and then return to the guests. Dele Jack Solomon, 20 years of uninterrupted democracy in Nigeria is a long time to eschew high level of corruption in our system, fight poverty, replace decayed infrastructure, reduce unemployment, eliminate ethnicity and religiosity, and exterminate insecurity and other ills. These we must not fail to do.
Okay, Mike Ayako tweets that we gained a lot in the last 20 years of democracy. It's not a mean statement. Because of developments that include agriculture, road construction, education, telecoms, education, power, security, democracy undoubtedly brings peace, unity, freedom.
All right, this is coming from Law Alpha C. One major gain of 20 years of democracy is the enviable and respectable status Nigeria is occupying in the international community. The signing of many bilateral agreements and MOUs for security, economy, and trade-related issues for general growth and development are examples.
All right, Festus Akiboyewa, I'm forced to really shorten your tweets because they are quite long. And as Kingsley will always plead, please make your tweets, short and, of course, precise. Festus Akiboyewa, your tweet is, democracy is alive, but members of our political class must remove desperation from our democracy and see politics as a public duty. That sums up your tweet.
Now, Titus Knock tweets, no nation develops without providing security. Corruption and nepotism erode the capacity of a nation to develop, hence insecurity challenges we are facing. Eradicate corruption and provide security and things will be okay.
And Motanat Farouk says, if the system of democracy in Nigeria is swayed, the cuts and ugly sides will certainly outweigh the benefit and the beauty. It says this is so because our attitude when it comes to discipline and sincerity, there's an inexplicable gap between leaders and the masses.
Mohammed Ibrahim, we can say Nigeria has come of age in democracy. It doesn't explain anyhow.
And Kejo Olagbeju trades the public service is still not responsive enough to deliver qualitative and fast service to citizens. It is the vehicle that delivers the gains, but more often are bogged down due to bureaucratic and self-opinionated attitude of the elite. We need public service reforms.
Now, Shuaibu Al-Khali, in 20 years of democracy, we give glory that a lot has been achieved, but our major problem today is insecurity.
And Dele Jackson, again, this is your second tweet, and you've outlined what the dividends of democracy should be, and they include good governance, popular participation, unity, accountability, protection of freedom and freedom of information, human rights, and decentralization and devolution of power.
Cecilia Okoroma, I believe in Nigeria. With continuous democracy, Nigeria will emerge as one of the best countries in the world. Democracy is about inclusiveness, not tribal or mundane sentiments.
And Habila Kwarazakshi, we've achieved very little as dividends of democracy. We're still battling with unpatriotic leaders without interest in good governance, just like our former military heads that came to power through guns and bullets. We have a very long way to go as a nation.
Now, Comrade Ngala, in 20 years of uninterrupted democracy, we have little improvement in terms of development. Masses are still suffering, no good electricity, and corruption everywhere. So those are the tweets that we have. I just, of course, we have barely 10 minutes to wrap up this conversation. One issue I would like the guests to address. Again, let's go to the Network Center in Jos, and also perhaps via Skype before we come back to get the closing thoughts of our guests here in the studios, Claire.
Yes.
Professor Dung Pamsha, there are some analysts who say that what has emerged in 20 years of Nigeria's democracy is that you have a president of the Federal Republic and then 36 emperors who are in charge of the states. And that this has created a situation where the political system is governed and dictated by oligarchs, which is why you have the challenges at the local government level, and you also have the challenges of governors dictating who becomes a member of the State House of Assembly, and the State House of Assembly are in their pockets, and then you also have governors dictating who goes to the National Assembly. The analysts argue that this is unhealthy for our democracy. If you agree with that view, how might these oligarchs be overthrown in terms of what we are seeing now that is unviable for our democracy? Make them real Democrats.
Well, I think that is an appropriate description of what is happening in our country. And this is basically because of the way the Constitution has been structured and framed, where powers, concentrate, in the hands of the governors to the detriment, of local government councils, and so they decide, on their own what is good for them and to serve their own interest. And so that description actually fits, what is going on in the country, which is really unfortunate. It's not good, for hegemonic, actors to emerge in such a way that their behaviors, serves as negatively, towards the growth of democracy. If local governments, which we have, argued for, to become autonomous or semi-autonomous, to play roles that citizens that are within those local governments, would benefit, this is what we expect. I like the point that has been made, by the chairman of the inter-party union, that we need some form of restructuring. And so if we allow these local governments, if we allow states, to do their own thing and contribute, to the growth of this country, that is what is required. But these people who have this power do not understand that the power is meant, for the transformation of resources, for the transformation, of citizens, for political development to take place, for economic development to take place, for social development to take place. They do not think that, and they do not even have the idea that this is what power is, is meant for. So yes, that description is good. How do we change this? I think we need to look at the Constitution again, see how we can reduce the powers of states and allow local governments, to also have some powers to independently play roles which would help citizens at that level of government to benefit, from services and from the resources which are nationally generated and devolve to that level of government. I also think that we should have more roles played, by institutions which have been set up in the country. Why would the EFCC or the ICPC or other related organizations, not, I would use the words harassed, those who have not been living up to expectations at those levels? Why would they continue to use power which is meant, for the transformation of our own society and for personal gains? So, like it has been said, corruption is the order of the day. Why would resources meant for citizens being kept, by a few, by the ones we call oligarchs, or by those hegemons, at the state levels? So we need to rethink, the Constitution, review it in such a way that those powers are reduced, and also to see how we can democratically share this power. I agree strongly with the view that our Constitution should be reviewed in such a way that we redistribute power, from the national to the state and to the local governments. States, should be freed to look at resources in locations where they are, and to make this available, for citizens to enjoy life. So I think that that's the way to go.
Thank you, Professor Pamsha. Professor Zilo, we would also like you to respond to that question, and also to what Malam Kabir has somehow described as a homegrown model of democracy.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think I listened to those tweets. They've all made valid points. When it comes, I'm not very optimistic about this issue of, when you look at principles of federalism and in a constitutional democracy, definitely devolution of power is very important. Decentralization of government is important. We need to have physical federalism. I agree on the level of restructuring, but let us not have too much hope that if you give local government powers as we are presently constituted, that there is going to be some magic. Even if you give them more money, the corruption, the process of getting the people who are at that level is faulty. So we're not going to see a lot of any difference anyway. We have to take it as a whole, and we need to do a holistic restructuring and rearrangement of government. And the problem, the Constitution is very clear on federalism. Of course, that third arm wasn't fully developed, but if we are to practice physical federalism and then fight the big elephant in the room, which is corruption, the cost of running the government, cost of government and governance is very high. There is inefficiency in the system. And if we're able to fight all of that and build institutions and then refocus again on those major pillars of democracy, the issue of rule of law, the functionality of functioning of government, the checks and balances, the separation of power that is there, the division of power, and everybody doing their bit, then we're going to have a better government, an efficient government that can deliver to the people. Infrastructure-wise, we're way behind. And the divide between urban and regional is a double digit. Also between men and women it is. So we have to look at this whole system. I don't know how we're building so much hope that if you give more money to local government, then things is going to turn around. With what they have, I don't know whether any of them have done anything. Most of them have not been able to deliver. There are even local governments within cities where private companies pay money to. So we have to do a holistic restructuring of devolution of power, to up to that level, and then also think with the political leadership and people who get elected even at that level to assume that they work for people and that by giving them more money they will work for people. I think that assumption is rebuttable, highly rebuttable, and I don't expect any magic from there.
Professor Ezilo, we would like to thank you, but just before we'll let you go, the rule of law as one of the pillars of democracy is significant. Now, applying the rule of law to the fight against corruption, isn't it curious that even though there are offenses that we can refer to as corruption in the statutes of the various state governments, very little of prosecution by the attorneys general of the states goes on. Everybody's looking at ICPC and EFCC.
Yes. Yeah, because it's also part of the problem of over-centralization of government and then irresponsibility of state. Because when we talk about that and we look at, three of my colleagues, we recently published an article in African Journal of African Law, where we talk about unconstitutionality of security votes. And then, because so at that level, people don't think they are accountable. They can hold even the federal government to higher accountability, and they see themselves as not accountable. So within the states, there have not been any issue of attorney general even prosecuting or, for corruption purposes. After we all have criminal code, and even before the ICPC or EFCC, all those offenses, white collar crime, all of that 10%, they are all there. And the criminal code of every state criminalizes the issue of corruption. And you're right, like you rightly asked, how come that there is no prosecution at that level? So there is complete abdication. We have to, go back to that, look at areas and aspects of concurrent jurisdictions, in the legislative list, and make sure that the states are doing the right thing. They are not doing the right thing. The budget doesn't work for people. The budget itself is such a big mismatch. And then, of course, there's so much corruption at that level. So they need to do the needful. If also they give money to local government and the state attorney general can wake up and hold them to account, fair enough, because they have to do their work. They have the law, even without going to the federal law. They have the law at state level to fight corruption. But they are seeing it as federal government problem. And then because, again, the federal government itself are taking over power in every aspect, states are beginning to relax and they feel like an appendage. So they have to go back and they can exercise the powers they have. So that's part of the problem. And we need to continue to strengthen those pillars. Importantly, the rule of law. That is crucial and that is critical.
Right, Professor Joy Ezilo, the pleasure is always ours having you join us on Good Morning Nigeria. We do appreciate you. So we want to let you go now to catch some sleep, and we'll see you back here when you do come back.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, then that was Professor Joy Ezilo joining us from Vancouver via Skype. That's in Canada. Let me come back to you, my last question, Mustafa. We talked about participation. For you, within these 2 years, how much has, have the youth been mainstreamed, into the process?
Well, I think if you talk about the participation, there are two participation. Is it participation in terms of the electionary system or they contesting themselves?
How have you been involved in the process, in the democratic process? It's a whole wide spectrum.
Yeah. I think the youth, there is an improvement, I think, and there is still a room to open more opportunity, to give more opportunities to the youth. One of the biggest gains is actually the not too young to run, which the president has, I think he signed last year. So that has opened a big room for the youth to come into the political arena. In terms of, the youths actually personally have to do more work in themselves, because it's not just about the government. We have youth clamoring for they want to be among, they want to participate. But if you call them, if you give them chance, I mean, we've seen some youths have actually, like, I mean, I will give you an example of a young person. It's not really a youth, but he's actually a young governor, which we have in Kogi State. And that's supposed to be like a role model for, I mean, the youths to actually see and come up. But unfortunately, from what we've seen or what I've heard, I mean, from where I am, I mean, people have complained so much about his governance, and to the extent that the states are saying, give us the older people. I mean, we would rather...
It's not here to defend that, but you were earlier on, you were talking about, and I'd like you to be very brief, about diaspora voting, the need for diaspora voting and all that.
Yes, diaspora voting, I think it's going to happen. I mean, because fortunately, and I would like to thank Mr. President for actually approving the Diaspora Commission, which Honorable Abike Dabiri is the chairman at the moment. And we met her, and she said it's already an ongoing discussion. Diaspora voting is very, very important because, like I said earlier, before this started, that we are the diaspora, especially in the UK, we have almost even more than 2 million citizens that are ready to vote. So I think it's going to be a very, very good achievement and a plus to the democracy to actually bring that number into the voting system.
All right, Abdullahi Mustafa, thank you very much for your contributions to our discussion this morning. And we also would like to appreciate Shitu Kabir Mohammed, the pioneer chair of Interparty Advisory Council. Thank you for being with us on Good Morning Nigeria. And from Jos, we're joined by Professor Dung Pam Shah, is political science at the University of Jos. Professor Pam Shah, thanks a lot for your insights in our discussion this morning. Okay, now let's go over to our foreign desk for some stories.
The World Health Organization has reported the spread of Ebola in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and this appears to be increased with more than 2,000 cases recorded, and 2/3 of them are fatal, with complications by rebel groups which has restricted efforts by health workers to contain the disease. Eastern DRC is now in the midst of the second worst outbreak of the disease in history. Militia attacks have hindered treatment and complicated the United Nations response to the crisis. Mistrust of health workers by locals has also contributed to an acceleration of the spread of Ebola in the country.
All right, so that does it for us today on Good Morning Nigeria. I would like to thank you for tuning in. The program returns tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Until then, continue your holidays in a happy mood. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Claire Adelabu Abdul Razak. Thank you, and of course, have a wonderful Eid Mubarak.
You do the printing stuff. Oh my God. The people that are doing businesses there, in the next 10, 15 years to collect of them will be deaf. That's the truth. That's the truth. You need to see the kind of, the kind of sound that comes out from, I'm an environmentalist, so I can tell, the kind of sound, all the offices, and they're close to 100, they all have generators.
They must have generators.
They all have, so imagine a business, and you're spending, imagine the amount you spend buying fuel on a daily basis just to run your business. So imagine if you have constant power. So if a single company can come in and provide solar power or something to that kind of area, at least to that kind of area, that would be a big
I tell you the
one.
truth, Nigerians don't mind paying for power.
We don't mind paying for power.
It's consistent.
We just want it to be there.
But if it's going to be there, it's going to be available.
We will pay. Nigerians will pay. An average Nigerian will pay. Yes, those in the rural area, but the truth is, the government needs to start thinking, out of what is happening now, what can we do better? I was at the forum sometime late last year, talking about those in diaspora to come and invest in the country. Yeah. These are the kind of things you should encourage them to come and invest in. Investors to come and invest in this. I know, of course, the government is doing it, but there's a whole lot that needs to be done.
Yeah. Okay, well, moving on from power, what about the 1 meal a day a program that's being carried out in the rural areas? Because you mentioned the rural areas earlier. Do you think that's been successful so far, or
for me,
for improvement?
For me, the truth is one of the problems we have in this country is sustainability. That is a major issue. There are lots of projects all over the place, scattered all over the country. What sustains this project? They just kick it off and it's beautiful, it's fantastic. There's no form of sustainability. It's just there. I bet you most of this project, if you go back, it might not be, the plan they had for it might not be working out that way, which is really, really sad.
Yeah, because
I don't think it's not sustainable.
You see some of the videos on social media and you're wondering,
And you're wondering, is it the same thing that was flagged off a couple of months ago?
That was promised to us.
Yes.
I have a take on that.
So if you must start it well and have a system that will sustain it to the period of time you want to have it go on.
That begs the question of monitoring scheme.
Okay.
We need an effective monitoring scheme. There's the government, and then there are the people.
Okay.
And the government. The government has kicked this off. Yeah, we've seen it.
What next?
What next? Now, where it's no longer functioning, or where there are failures, I think the people needs to stand.
The Nigerian people, meaning you and me.
Yeah, me and you.
Okay.
You need to start saying, why is this thing no more working? You need to start raising the
We need to start holding someone accountable.
We need to start holding local town criers meetings to say, no, if this is what this man said is going to do, and this government has been awarded, and this is flagged off, why is it not functioning? Because I know the Minister of Works, not just only on the 1 meal per day, other projects. The Ministry of Works, they have this what they call oversight functions, whereby they supervise this project. It's true. But it's easy for the government and for someone to connive and then this monies just go in the wind. It's very easy. But if the people should stand and say, this borehole has been awarded, what's happening? Why are we not seeing it? I think it's going to put a whole lot of things in check. Like every program that has been flagged, the media house, we can do a good job by airing it.
Yes.
So once there's something going on, we need to do a good job by saying, this is what the government has done.
Okay.
The people needs to know and follow it up.
What about social media? Isn't that serving as a checks and balance even for the government? When things aren't working, then people...
Sadly,
sometimes I feel it's a good idea, sometimes not so good idea.
I really thank God for social media. Social media is something that happened to this generation that is putting everybody in check. That's the truth. It's one good thing that happened to this generation. But the sad part of social media is that people just go on social media and talk, and does nothing. Sadly, so the point he's raising is not just to talk. It's about getting down to the roots, getting dirty. Who should be held accountable? Who should be doing it? Who are the people that we voted for? Why are they not doing what they're supposed to do? Yeah. Okay, project has been flagged off, and that's it. You flag off a borehole today, and by next month it's not working. Who should be held accountable for these things that are not working? The rules, the things you promised us in your manifesto, I will do this, I will do that. Why are they not happening? I mean, we know how the
power is for the people.
We know the promises that were made. I know the unemployment thing. I know the brouhaha that was made about it. What happened after all? Nobody said, and that just died down like that. So it's one thing to have social media and people talking and going. Yes, it makes a whole lot of great effects, but it's not enough.
I agree.
Sadly, when I go on social media, people are just complaining, insulting. The Western world is different.
It is.
They use it to organize meetings. They use it to mobilize a movement. They use it to start up a protest. You know, we just talk and complain.
So
and then
Nigerian social media needs to move away from the devices. Away from the devices and then into
get
action.
into the streets,
I see what you mean.
I mean, we can say no, you are done with your 4 years, you can't come back. You know, but a politician is arrested for fraud. He is, you see EFCC arrest him, he is in court, and the man wins elections. And I'm wondering how.
Yes, and you're wondering. The truth is, Nigeria, I think we're gradually evolving. Yeah. It will take us time to get there, but I strongly believe we will get there. We'll get to the point where we will tell ourselves, you know what, enough is enough. Because right now, a lot of the people you want us to hold someone accountable. The youths, let me take that for example. A lot of them are unemployed. And unemployment is something that this incoming government they just need to sit down to say, you know what I know they have the empower.
I was just about to say, but on the flip side, they are doing something.
I don't even know how. I'm not saying they're doing nothing.
And I've seen testimonies of the empower. I've listened to some on radio, people who are
but
actually.
There's a whole lot that needs to be done. The NYC is churning out graduates in droves. What's happening to them? I'm not saying give everybody a job. I mean, I encourage entrepreneurship. I'm an entrepreneur myself. Yeah. But I'm saying, could there be packages, like, I don't know what's happening in the NYC camp right now. Could there be packages why people are serving to say, okay, you're serving your country, okay, learn a skill in the process. So peradventure, you come out and you don't have a job. Could the government fund things like that? Could there be things like grants? Could there be things like funding for business, especially little startups? These things are not there. So people graduate, there are no jobs, and then there's nothing to fall back to. A lot of young people now, they just look for things themselves. Some people go into makeup. At the end of the day, they don't even have funds to start up their own business. Yeah. It's terrific. Yeah. So these are things that, policymakers should sit down, check and know what to do, especially this upcoming administration.
It's born out of the idleness and boredom that these youths are, that things like internet fraud and the rest of it is really escalating. You see, every other day, I open a new page and people are being arrested, young boys, young people being arrested.
It's really sad. It's really sad, especially with the internet fraud thing. It's really, it's a mess.
I know
the
government really is doing a lot on that, but I feel, sometimes before you say you're Nigerian anywhere else outside of the country, you pause for a minute before you say it, because they've already...
you know the reaction you want to get. But the truth is...
They profile you in a different way, so I'm hoping that the government can do something about the vast amount of youths that are sitting behind their computers just trying to make money easily off other people, off the hard earnings of other people.
These potentials in these young people can be harnessed into something better.
I was going to say that.
It can be harnessed. Imagine a young guy sitting in front of you for 6, 8, 10 hours. Yeah. Imagine the knowledge they have. It's not easy to defraud people, That's the truth. That's the truth. It's not easy. I don't know how to do it, but it's not easy.
I know.
If someone can defraud someone, there's a whole lot that person can do.
I was going to say something on that, but first of all, we need to some extent, I think this government has done well in creating SME funds for startup business, even in camps. There are skills acquisition programs going on, and then there are grants, like you mentioned.
I never knew that.
Yes, that is going on. I've heard the Vice President a couple of times talk about the loans that they are dishing out.
How accessible are these loans?
Well,
that's another factor entirely. How accessible are they? We're talking about loans now. That's for young people. But let also shift our attention a bit to the older generation.
To the older people who have businesses and need funds too.
After working for years, 30, 35 years, what do they fall back to? What skills do they even have to continue their lifespan? So someone that's been in the civil service for about 30 years and has no business experience, at the end of his service year, you give him some money. What does he do with it? Do they have, I know before my dad retired, they had to take them on, he works in the private sector in an oil company. They had to take them on a course for a couple of weeks or thereabout, where to orientate their mind on, okay, you're getting this kind of money, but you need to look for a way to, they have to get people to come and, I don't know about how they
now entitled to an allowance after each month. They now give you an allowance. So, some people...
After their service years, after 35 years of service. So we need to review the pension scheme and make sure that every sector, not just only those working in the multinationals, but every sector, they're benefiting from the pension.
That's the basis for corruption.
A lot more.
That's the basis for people stealing government funds. Because when you look at where you're heading to, you're not even sure where you're going to get at the end of the day. So you just have a basis to, you know what, let me just grab everything I can grab now. I can grab it.
Another thing that I feel the government should focus on more in this new next 4 years, this next level, is an issue.
Wow. Wow. Strike, oh, their salary is not being, and you don't blame them. You don't blame. Were they reforming?
It's clear.
Becomes a bill.
We were at the.
It's going to take the government to put that in place, but
yeah, I mean, look at what's happening. Dragging her from all sorts of the oxygen. Yeah. I was a little traumatized because you don't know
those videos.
You don't know just what internal damage she may
would have happened to her at that point.
Stable and still on a stretcher and taken out of there
carefully.
Someone had her over the shoulder.
Something that really bothered me when I was having my second baby was I don't have the statistics now, but the rate of women that die at childbirth.
I have it. It's
alarming.
After, is it 90 minutes?
It's alarming. The statistics of women, it's alarming.
Of children that die at childbirth.
No, not children,
okay,
women.
The mothers.
I mean, we're not talking about children now. Yes. Children is a different case. I mean, the percentage that children that die under 3. And you're wondering, why? I heard of a woman that lost a child because of malaria. And malaria is like, okay, it's not malaria.
Yes.
It's not the same malaria we're talking about.
Same malaria.
Women that die at childbirth. And when I had my first child outside this country, because I came from Nigeria, it was an issue for me. But when I went through the statistics of women dying at childbirth, it's not something it's not talked about here.
Yeah.
But coming back and she was giving birth to a baby and then she died. And it's just like
especially
a normal
areas.
What can be done?
Yeah.
What's happening? Is it that our healthcare system is not well equipped to take care of women and then emergency? What happens at when the emergency situation rises?
Especially managing her right after the childbirth. It's not just about the baby's here. The woman still needs.
And then you know what I find very astonishing? What I find very astonishing is outside this country we have the best doctors in the world.
Yeah. It's true.
Nigerians.
Not just doctors. We have some of the best
medical personnel.
Yes.
More recently I heard what the minister, one of the ministers said about doctors migrating. Migration is another problem. We might say, oh, our country population is so much, some should even leave, but our best of the best are migrating. Doctors are migrating in droves. My neighbor is a nurse. She's leaving the country before the end of the year. That's the truth. They are migrating in droves, and the minister said, oh, we can't be bothered. So if we have
how do we retain them? How do we retain them? How does the government retain people?
The truth is, of course, when they have good salary scheme.
Yeah.
If I know that my salary scheme or my pension scheme is very palatable, why would I think of going abroad? Why would I think of leaving?
Yeah.
But when you know that the structure out there, you're sure of your salary, you're sure of your scheme, your pension scheme, you're sure of the education of your children, you want to go to somewhere better.
The amount of applications to embassies for visas, the US, UK,
Canada.
We read about what was happening in Canada.
They're having a brain drain in this country right now.
Doctors protesting that they were overpaid. The salaries is too high.
Yeah, there's a part of Canada, I read that right up.
Protesting that.
So if you're a doctor,
say that again?
Yeah, they said that doctor salary was too much.
That salaries is too high.
Yes.
That they were overpaid.
So it's a major issue, having brain drained from this country. The best of our best is leaving the country, especially in the healthcare. So when you have a doctor that has over 25 years of experience, is leaving the country, and you say, oh, we have doctors springing up, you can't compare.
No, you can't.
There is no comparison for a young doctor who's coming up from university and a doctor who's had over 25 years of experience.
It's funny you should mention that. We had an ENT specialist here in the conversation room some weeks ago.
Okay.
And I said, why is it so hard to see you at a government hospital. They're probably only available Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
Yes,
and even after that, you have to pay a fee, maybe 5,000 naira, to see him.
Yes.
Compared to all the other doctors. He said, well, they're just not that many of us.
Sadly,
there are not that many of
that's
us
the sad truth.
around, you know. So before my daughter could see an ENT, we had to come back on a specific day. We had to pay 5,000 naira to see the doctor. So it's happening. He's doing quite well here. He's happy working for Nigeria. But, you know, for how long?
For how long?
What if one day he's just like, you know what?
And his counterparts overseas are doing better. I mean, there's no comparison. I had a friend of mine who's a nurse. She just came back to the country. And when she was telling me the amount of money she made over a span of 6 months, I was like, wow. So when other nurses hear such, they just want to migrate because they're sure of better life for their children, better life for themselves. So the country needs to start thinking of how to keep this best brain. Is that enough for us to have the population?
And it's not just the medical professionals. There are engineers, there are HR professionals, so many people like that.
It's really going to be difficult because we can't compete with the salary structure.
I know we can't compete, but there must be something. There must be some incentive.
If you really love Nigeria, you will love to work in Nigeria. If, to some extent, you have a nice...
The conditions are right.
Mark Ben, I disagree with you. If there are people working outside of Nigeria that really love Nigeria, but choose to work outside, it's not because you don't love Nigeria.
It's not because you love Nigeria.
That's what I'm saying. If they have a good competitive package, something, but not as good as what they have out there. You always want, some people want to work at home.
Yeah, some people want to work at home.
And that also boils down to the insecurity, the power.
Insecurity is a major challenge.
All of that. It's not just about how much I've been paid.
It's the total picture.
Am I afraid driving out of my house to work? Am I going to be seeing light or am I running a generator?
Yeah.
So all of those things put together could help us retain some of the best staff we have.
Yeah. Because even our parents in the village, are they safe in the village as well? Sometimes you get that call and you're like, they've carried mama, they've carried uncle. They want this amount of money. You start raising money. Where do you start from?
Very true. Very true.
That's true.
It's having the whole picture in mind. I mean, the coming administration is... I mean, Nigeria is hard work itself, that's the truth. It's a large country, a whole lot has to be done. But the truth is, I think they need to bring it down to the rural areas. That's what I think. Because we're here in Abuja, things seems a little bit easier. What about those in the villages? This healthcare system we have. Some of them, all they have is just they have just this little hospitals, not even hospital, like clinic or something. Yeah. And then maybe you have nurses there. Health centers. And how, when a woman that is giving birth to a child have complications in a health center, her possibility of surviving, the chances of a child surviving, these are things that the government should be looking at. Power, we talked about power, we talked about insecurity. For me, that's the biggest challenge, honestly.
What about food? Do you think food is easily accessible? Do you think food is cheap?
Because insecurity is a major factor right now, it's affecting food. Because those who are farming, those who are farming are those that are affected by the kidnapping, by the Boko Haram, and by all that. So a lot of people are scared to go to the farm. That's a factor right now. So the food issue is a major crisis.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people who are farming are even scared to go to their farms.
And even transporting some of this produce,
that's another issue.
North all the way to the south and different parts of the country, moving them. I mean, we have the railway. It's working.
Yeah, the railway is working. Yes, somewhat. It's working.
Somewhat working, but to move this produce to different parts of the country and to sell at a rate that is,
it's reasonable
for the traders, yes, to be able to still make their money back.
I think something we really need to look at is, I think this government has also tried in importation, reducing a whole lot of importation.
Yeah.
But we need to now start investing on crops. What are we... we need to start growing our own food. I think if the farmers are enabled, like you said, given adequate securities, I heard Dangote praising El-Rufai, the governor of Kaduna State. If the whole 19 governors can do like him in the north, I think there will be less poverty from the north. That's to say the man is investing heavily in agriculture.
But the insecurities we hear arising from Kaduna is not funny.
Exactly. So something that we need to note is we need the governors to aid farming. They need to invest in agriculture.
not just in the north. You know, most of us are dependent on the north for food. But I think it's high time where other states should also be thinking about improving their food production. If, it might not, some, like my state will say, oh, we don't have the land mass, to produce more of this food. But what about other parts of food? We're talking about chicken, livestock, and all that. So other states should, start, especially the governors, thinking of how to invest heavily, in food, because the north right now, where most of this food is coming from, is threatened. Yeah. That's the truth.
Yeah. What about, you talked about growing Nigerian produce. What about even our politicians and being Nigerian in themselves, wearing Nigerian clothing proudly? I mean, how many of them, there are a couple of them that, show the branded, the foreign brands, as belts and bags and the rest of it. But how many of them are really patronizing Nigerian entrepreneurs, the people that make the bags and the shoes and everything? I think if some of our politicians, our leaders out there, truly, and when I say truly, I mean truly promotes their brands. I mean, there's nothing wrong with one of these senators buying, school bags, getting someone who's good with leather and buying school bags, paying for school bags for kids in his community.
Right.
These are the kind of things I'm talking about. I'm not talking about you carrying that one bag that will last you 2 years. Buy a mass so that, the person that is even making these bags is going home. When you're whistling to work, because there's something in your
making
pocket.
The money
you're making the money at the end of it.
I agree.
These are some of the ideas.
I was involved in one of the setups at the exhibition. There was an exhibition.
Okay.
Entrepreneur exhibition.
Yeah, it's at Old Pirate Grant. And a lot of these guys from Aba came, and the vice president was there as well. He was amazed, just going around, looking at what they are producing from Aba. He was impressed. And they need to start giving them the contracts. Like, I don't know where they're getting the NYSC clothes from. They need to start giving them the contracts. Some of these contracts, they need to start trusting our local
because the finishing of some of these Aba shoes and things,
you need to go to Aba, right?
Yeah.
It's better felt than imagined.
Yeah.
To see the creativity.
Are you from Aba?
I'm from Imo State. My husband from Abia State.
Okay.
You need to go to Aba to. You'll be marveled. You need to go in there to see the talents. Some of them are just maybe primary school holders, but the kind of thing sometimes all they need is just a little extra push, and then they can match up with their competitors outside this country.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it boils down to everyone to his own.
For this next level, I think the legislators, they should start putting the tax on foreign goods. It was said, I don't know if they've done
the time we had this Buy Naija, it was really trending.
It was trending.
It was trending. It became really it's still the trend.
I mean, the foreign wine, the foreign clothes, the foreign shoes, the foreign food. If they put tax on them.
You were talking about politicians buying en masse. I want to take you back to the average Nigerian. The truth is, our hype, our mindset has been, if it's not foreign, it's not good enough. So we need to start. It's gradually evolving, though.
Yeah.
We need to get to that point where we start, trust. Even though it's not that fantastic, but it can get better, and it's getting better.
There's something he just said about foreign food, and I was like, I wonder, do we make sardines in Nigeria? Okay, we don't. Some people are very sardines, but I just wonder, what's wrong with Titus and and stew and make it and eat it with your yam or whatever?
Yeah,
you
don't
have
like
to
in supermarkets. We have I think there was even a story of stew. These are local made stew that was packaged, and it was from Ghana.
I remember that
custom.
Yeah.
Yes, and I was like, so why someone else? I think it was after them when I had people. And one thing with Nigeria, when one person starts, everybody
else starts.
Everybody takes it off.
Yeah. I watched this show, that the custom people put up. Nice. I think they're doing a good job.
Yeah.
Stopping a whole lot of these things coming in.
Yes. Yeah. We've had a lot of.
I've had to even calm down on corned beef and the rest that I used to buy.
I really applaud what they're doing.
Yeah.
Not just food, even weapons and all that. So, that's something I'm going to say. If we have the right human resource, people who are passionate about the country, in particular offices, will do well. We'll do well. We see what the new custom guy is doing. We can say they're doing something. So we need people at positions like this, where they will take these things by themselves and just act. We saw what the late Dora
Akunyili
did for NAFDAC.
Yeah.
She just, I didn't even know NAFDAC existed on social
Until she
yes,
turned the place around and she put it on the map. She put NAFDAC on the map.
And then I hear the latest NAFDAC boss complaining of restricted resources. Yeah, it was on news. She was saying it on air that they were asking her for bribe, legislators. She said it. She said it.
Okay.
You know, I'm quoting her. And this is some things that should change.
Yeah.
It should change. I think it needs to change. We need to bribe our legislators to pass certain bills.
It's sad, but it's a reality.
And putting the right people in the right places. I mean, I know now it's going to be a next level new change, new heads of agencies. Let the professionals be at the helm of affairs, not just for any sentimental reasons that they're being placed there, but let them actually know their onions. Let them know what it is that they're doing, you know, because Isidora Akunyili was fantastic.
She was.
And I remember that I think there were issues with her appointment at the very beginning, because yes, I distinctly remember that. You know, just let the right people be at the helm of affairs at these different agencies, and you know, hopefully, you know, we'll be moving towards it will get better for us.
Yeah, you're right. Again, the people should stand. We need to start talking. We need to start meeting these agencies. We need to start meeting. A lot of people know the president. They know the vice. Some don't even know the name of their senators. Those representing them. They don't know the name of those in the House of Reps. They don't know the local government chairman. They don't know.
And those that even know, some of them are loyal fans or loyalists to these people. So you can't even hold them accountable. So whatever they say is good, is fantastic,
we
is nice.
cascade down to these people to know that, what's my local government chairman doing? He submitted a budget, right? It was approved. What's the governor doing? What's this minister doing? Will this person representing me? A lot of the senators are giving constitutional projects. I think, have you carried it out? You know, you know, all these things, the people need to start being mindful of the person representing me in the Senate. What's it doing? What's he or she doing?
I think it's time to get more vocal, if you ask me.
That's what I'm saying.
It's time to get more vocal. So if for example, I know that this is my House of Rep and this is what I think he should be doing, it's not doing it. I think it's time to say, you know what, if it means even writing a piece on social media, because that's the voice of the people right now.
It is the voice of the people.
It is for me, because it's more this media, you're like, okay, might not really have access to them. But if you write a piece and you have pictures to show for this thing, I know even most of these politicians, even social media put them on check. Yes, that's true. They just put them on check. So my advice is also to my very self is, if you see where something, avoid insults, avoid unnecessary, use of abusive words. Just get straight to the facts. When someone out there knows that, a piece is about me that is circulating from my local government or from my zone or from my constituency, and I'm not doing this. Okay, a good example is the case of this Success little girl.
Yes, of course.
That's from an oil-rich state. I grew up in Delta State.
Okay.
An oil-rich state, and look at how dilapidated a primary school is. Oil-rich zone. And all of a sudden, everybody wants to, they're hyping her. But we have a billion of successes out there in this country, and nobody is hearing their voices. So she's just one of them, because she trended for a while and then she's all over the place. So what about those children that have no voice?
That didn't have access to
our education system is terrible.
We need to have a checklist on why is this person in office. Like, if they don't meet certain criteria, nobody can rig an election where nobody wants you.
Yeah.
That's just the truth. The truth is, we've not gotten to that place yet. Nigerians, because we think of our stomach first.
Voice.
It's the truth. We think of our stomach. It's sad, but it's a sad reality. Most people say the last election they had, some elections can be said, okay, this was fair in some states, and in some places you just see that, this is obviously very, very unfair and all that. But you can't place your hands on it. But if you get to a point where, if I go back to my state and I go around the primary schools in my local government and I have pictures to show for it, that's something. Yeah. But most of us are in cities, we're very versed, we're on social media. I think we should get back to the roots.
All right, we've come to the end of the program. We don't have any more time. We've been talking about agenda setting, even as we're moving to the next level in the next couple of weeks. We're hoping that the federal government does more for the Nigerian populace, and we're hoping that, the next 4 years will, be the very best for us as a nation. Thank you so much for joining us. Our social media handles are available. If you have any comments, suggestions about conversations, we would love to hear from you. So on behalf of Jane and Macbeth, thank you so much for joining us, and see you soon. Goodbye.
NTA. You can't beat the rich.
The act of making something more beautiful by adding ornaments to it is also known as decoration. Today, so many men and women hardly do without decorating their events. They choose the colors and the quality of materials befitting such an event. Invited guests and groups that grace the occasion normally come in their numbers with different attires conforming to the recommended colors. This practice is an indicator of cooperation and solidarity during ceremonies and festive period. The purpose of wearing the dress can be to serve as self-identification with age mates, relations or friends during social occasions such as weddings, funerals or parties. The word Asho in Yoruba means cloth and Ebi denotes family. So, Ashobi can be described as a family cloth usually worn during parties or family ceremonies or occasions. However, others call it anko, and many adopt the white man model, which is uniform.
When it first started, it was just the headgear. All the members wearing the same color. Gradually, today, they have moved down even to the dress and the handbag. Handbag to match and even shoes.
The question then is, how do we practice in our own locality in Benue State?
Because of our association with the outside world, our people are bringing it and introducing it now in Benue State.
They use it in order to make their events colorful. Almost all the Tiv traditional marriages, you see them making black and white ashobi. So for the Idomas, it's red and black. Then the Igede is blue and black on the traditional marriages, and even on the white weddings, they use black and white.
How do you feel when your event is accentuated with different colorful attires?
So much excited because I will know that at least I have a group, as in people that have identified with me on my day.
I will be so excited, so joyously inside me. I will know that yes, so people, everybody will know that yes, these are so people, he belongs to them, so it makes you happy.
What happens if the guests come with attires whose colors do not correspond with those recommended?
It is not as if it is a must that you must wear ashobi. It's not for everybody. So if the chief celebrant sees somebody who is not into that attire, why will he or she not welcome the person?
There are factors that could make people to disappoint you in that way. Some, it could be that they don't have the money to afford the material given. Some, it could be that they don't like wearing the same clothes with so many people.
Inasmuch as decoration is aesthetic to an event, people whose attires do not conform with the color of the day should be free to partake in the merry-making or identify with others wearing the same uniform. After all, the essence of attending any party is just to celebrate with others and have a nice time. So, next time you're going out for that occasion, the choice is yours. Stay with the crowd or have your own unique identity.
Can we have the menu booklet, please?
Madam, we know they sell book for here. See, our food, see our food.
Like you don't have a menu? So how am I supposed to know what to order for or what to eat?
Who the heck recommended this rascal of a hooker for you?
Who can you? What do you want? Oh my God! Who is that lousy woman and why are you screaming to the rooftop? Stand up for me and get out! You just said this place is a shower place? Please don't let that. What are you doing? Mommy! Come here! Come! Take out! You didn't hear what?
Nigeria's Professor Tijani Muhammad Bande emerges 74th President of United Nations General Assembly. Eid al-Fitr celebrations continue across the country with homages.
Those of you who suffered quietly supporting me, and I assure you that I will continue to do my best.
Deploy more troops to identify black spots. Zamfara State Governor pleads with the military.
We have a major problem between Goldenbori to Faru up to Talati Mofara.
Good morning and welcome to the news at 10 on NTA News 24. I am Norlin Ebel Ame. Nigeria's permanent representative to the United Nations, Professor Tijani Muhammad Bande, has been elected as the 74th President of the United Nations General Assembly. Correspondent Joy Usiago in New York reports that Professor Bande is the second Nigerian to be elected as President of the General Assembly, 30 years after General Joe Garba.
A resounding applause for Professor Tijani Muhammad Bande as he is elected to take over the mantle of leadership of the upcoming 74th United Nations General Assembly in September. Professor Bande was elected by acclamation.
Declaro al excelentísimo señor Tijani Muhammad Bande de Nigeria elegido por aclamación presidente de la Asamblea General en su 74º periodo de sesiones.
The implementation of existing mandates and the 2030 agenda, with particular focus on peace and security, poverty eradication, zero hunger, quality education, climate action and inclusion will constitute the major priority of my presidency. As the United Nations has not met the expectations of its founding fathers in terms of preventing many violent conflicts and mass atrocities, we have to assume collective responsibility to make the world a better, safer, and more peaceful one.
And as a Nigerian and an African, you have invaluable insights into the continent's challenges, such as the Sahel and the Lake Chad Basin, and more broadly, into the challenges our world faces across the three pillars of our work: peace, sustainable development, and human rights.
The delegation from Nigeria and many Nigerian diplomats and some of their colleagues at the United Nations were at the General Assembly Hall to celebrate Nigeria and Africa.
This candidate represents not only just the ECOWAS that has endorsed him, but also the African Union and then the continent as a whole that endorsed him. But also it tells you about the clouds, the experience, the knowledge that the candidate himself is going to bring to bear in the work. And you have had the testimonies of all the representatives of the regions, including even the United States of America, that this candidate is the perfect choice, and he's bringing a lot of knowledge and experience to do. So we are happy that this has taken place at this moment.
It's a very important day for Nigeria. When you consider that this is happening with our international relations about 30 years after it first happened with the late General Joseph Garba. So the support for it, the enthusiasm for it at the highest level of government, cannot be measured.
From the United Nations headquarters in New York, Joy Usiago, NTA News.
In the spirit of the Eid al-Fitr celebrations, the FCT community is reassuring President Muhammadu Buhari of continued support, cooperation and understanding as he strives to implement the next-level agenda for sustainable future of the country. This was when members of the community paid homage on the president as part of activities marking the Eid al-Fitr celebrations. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports that President Buhari once again reassured the nation that under his watch, Nigeria can only be stronger, more prosperous and enviable.
The FCT community, comprising amongst others traditional rulers, religious and political leaders, as well as judicial and security officers, was led to the State House by the Permanent Secretary, Mr. Christian Chinyaka Oha. He told the president that in the last 4 years, the FCT has benefited immensely from his wise, divine and inspired leadership, thereby enjoying peace and reaping tremendous benefits of the various social intervention programs.
As we steer our country back to the path of social harmony, security, and economic recovery, the people of FCT stand solidly behind you as you begin this task and pledge our support and cooperation in coming years ahead.
Mr. Oha said FCT community will continue to play crucial roles towards ensuring that the president succeeds, beginning with the planned celebrations of the nation's Democracy Day on June 12, saying already effective mobilization have been carried out and the residents are prepared to become exceptional hosts of the event. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, who led senior government officials on the Salah
of unity
to Allah that his mission
Sense distributorship. People are now building houses, core members are living better, lots of working class people are making extra money because of Sapphire Sense. Become a Sapphire Sense distributor today.
Thank you for staying with us. As Nigerian Muslims celebrate the Eid al-Fitr, which preceded the 29 days of fasting, the message of perseverance, love, tolerance, as well as unity has been re-echoed. Guests on NTA's Current Affairs program, Nigeria Today, however, call on all Muslims to shun all forms of discord and live in unity with others. Coordinator, Islamic Family Foundation Imam Musa Dawood noted that the purification and transformation of the body and soul must continue after Ramadan.
Forgetful. Humanity is
country, and also to say well done for a good job that they do daily.
In Abuja, Amina Nujaim, NTA News.
And that's the news at 10 on NTA News 24. Thank you for watching. I am Norlin Ebel Ame.
Hello and welcome to One on One. I am Cyril Stover. Now, one of the things I set out to do
society.